Like the
All right.
Hawk Tuah girl was annoying, and then the assassination happened, and we got all these fire memes. So it's great.
Recent events: Trump, Biden,
The
and
rump.
Kamala.
Damn. Her name is Kamala Harris.
Yeah. No, I actually really did like Joe Biden. I wish he did stay in the race.
Did you like Joe Biden because you thought he was actually doing the things, or did you like him because his administration as a whole was accomplishing what you like?
Well, whether you want to believe that he is a mastermind or like there was someone else behind him, whether it be his administration or if it was just him doing like pulling all the strings, what they did, either what he did or what his administration did, I am in support of for the most part. A lot of stuff they did, I think, actually did help Americans. They just haven't campaigned enough, like hard enough, to like show like, hey, here's the things that we've done. Here's the stats that like say like this is what we've done basically. Um, so whether it being him or his administration, I'm in support of it for the most part.
So, okay. I guess to follow up on that, what do you believe, that the president is solely in control of the executive branch, or I don't want to say that, like, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a weird conspiracy theorist, because this is like literally how I think it's done. But like, so does the president control the executive branch, or does like the president like kind of guide the executive branch? I mean, the executive branch is actually run by like the secretaries and the bureau chiefs and all that, and
See,
the
that's the thing. So
staff.
the original intention was for the president to be in full control of
Yes.
everything, but
Yes.
hold on, that was the original
No.
intention.
I'm just agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
just agreeing.
but sorry, I had to drink my juice box. But how it's run now, it tends to be the case that these separate little branches are almost autonomously run, to help the president in his duties, like the Department of Education and stuff, like the military and all that stuff. They're almost their own centrally run
Sure.
thing, but then they all report back to the president just to help his job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you, because that's how I mean, listen, I agree with with your constitutional interpretation. It literally says at the beginning of Article 2, the executive power shall be invested in the president. So, I mean, I agree with you there. Literally, if you read the Constitution, that's like what's written in there. But I also agree with you in the fact that the Constitution, or that they are de facto, the departments are like de facto autonomous. And they kind of almost, at least with how things are run now, they kind of have to be, because everything is so complex. It would literally be impossible for the president to like run the military day to day.
Yeah, while also running like the CIA and the FBI and the Department of Education and all these other different institutions. Like, and how it's run is that the president does have some say over them, but for the most part, they are autonomously run, and they all just go back to the president and be like, "Hey, here's what we've done, and here's what we're going to do later."
Yeah, well, and arguably that is what the deep state is. The deep state is just those semi-permanent or permanent members of the subordinate bureaus and secretary, departments that actually run the government day to day, like the actual day to day operations of the government.
I don't like using deep state though, because it is true that there is a deep state, but in the sense that these departments are run autonomously and they just go up to the president and say, "Here's what we're doing." But I don't like using deep state in the sense that when people say it, they usually it's all the conspiracy stuff, and I would rather maybe have a different. I'd rather have different terms. So
I'm not. Well, I mean, okay, the permanent state, the daily
that's the
state.
thing. I don't know what I would call it, but when you say deep state, there's usually some negative connotation involved with it. That's very conspiratorial.
Well, I mean, you know how I am, and you know how I don't care if people use terms wrong or not and use them for nefarious purposes. Like, I believe you should use the correct term regardless if people mean it a different way.
But there's a reason why multiple different words in a sense mean the same thing, because it's all about connotation of a word. So like you can look at like nerd and geek, right? Roughly, like they're the same thing. They're the same concept. They both reference a certain kind of like person. However, one nerd is actually more of a positive connotation than a geek is. Even they both mean the same thing, but one is seen more positively than the other. and that's usually what we do with
I mean,
language.
I agree, but I mean, I would say for the not to get bogged down in definitions and things like that. I would say for this discussion, it would be okay to call it the deep state because I think you understand that I'm not a conspiracy theorist. That like the deep state is like secretly this like cabal of people who are like trying to rule the world and things like that. Like
or
that's
like
not
with
at all.
or like the whole Pizzagate thing where there was the cabal of like pedophile ring and all that other shit, and cheese pizza meant like small boy or something.
Well, I do think. I mean, that's a different discussion. I think there's a lot of pedophiles in the government. But that's just because.
Oh no, I agree. There's pedophiles everywhere, right? Like a lot of rich and powerful people can get away with it because they have money, they have power. There's a reason why Trump got away with a lot of stuff that he did and Epstein did for so long.
Agree, but I agree with you that the Pizzagate thing is.
You're ringing.
That's what I'm saying. But
you're ringing, bro.
Oh, so, well, it's my.
Holy shit!
It's my water. It's my hose. Fuck. Oh, you don't? Do you like that? Do you like that?
No, it's also streaming and recording, so it's not good. Holy shit.
Well, good. The one viewer can see that.
Yeah, usually the one viewer is me anyways, so.
But, I think that using the term deep state in this context is okay, because I think we both have a good faith idea of what is meant by that, and it's not stupid conspiracy theory.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like we should definitely have more terms for like roughly the same concept.
Well, let's invent that a different time. For now, let's continue the discussion. So we both agree that that it is important who the president is because he kind of he kind of guides the ship, so to speak. But like,
sure.
I mean, do you think that it matters that Biden is actually the president, or like if someone else, as long as like the majority of the staff of the departments and secretaries, the deep state remain the same, would it matter if it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders or whoever?
Well, it's usually the case that like the president, for the most part, guides what these other things do. They do run autonomously for the most part. There's still some guidance coming from the president because he is in charge of them. And it's like the reason why I would rather have Biden instead of Trump is because the way that Trump would run like these different departments is going to be different from how Biden would run these and guide these different institutions. And that it's all solely in like what they're more focused on in terms of policy. So like the policies that Biden has enacted versus what Kamala might enact might be different, even though they're in the same party.
No, but okay. So what I'm saying is, just as a thought experiment, if let's just say okay, just to be clear, maybe not use as a thought experiment. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Yeah. You're saying that even if the staff is the same, the fact that the actual president on top, who's supposed to be kind of directing things, they may have a different focus. Even if the staff is the same, they're gonna have different outcomes with them.
Yeah, so it's about like how they guide them, right? So like it could be a Trump presidency, and like all the staff could be the exact same as under the Biden administration, but the way Trump guides them is going to be different, and the way that they do their own internal policies and how they run things is going to be different because president is the one that guides them to do different things. He may not directly tell them what to do, but there is a guidance factor that is there. And for the most part, I would support Biden instead of Kamala, as I know what Biden's done, and I support a lot of stuff that Biden and his administration has done because of his guidance.
Yeah, okay. I mean, fair enough.
Do you disagree with that?
Actually... No. I mean, I agree with you. I'm just more... to be honest, I'm more of someone who thinks the president is kind of more of a figurehead than he actually does important things. So, like, for example, under Trump, when Trump came into power, he put in a lot of permanent state, deep state people, and because of that, he had a lot of internal problems. Even Trump supporters like Bill. His attorney general, the one that Barr,
Bill Barr,
Bill Barr. Yeah, Bill Barr. Yeah, he was a Trump supporter, but he was still kind of a semi-permanent state kind of guy. I forget which departments of the government he worked in, but he had worked for the federal government before he worked for Trump. And even he, during January 20th or January 6th, stood against Trump and said, hey, your elector scheme is kind of bullshit, and you know, them stealing the election is bullshit and things like that. So like even um, even even if the president is in power, his staff and secretaries can kind of stand against him
Sure.
and things like that. So
Yeah, but do you disagree that the president is more like for these institutions, since they do run mostly autonomous, but the president, would you agree that the president is like a guiding figure for these different institutions? He doesn't directly tell them what to do for the most part, but he does guide them towards different things.
So what I'm trying to say is it depends. He can, if the president and his staff and everyone is in alignment, yes. But when that doesn't happen, I mean, in theory, the president can fire whoever he wants in the executive branch and things like that, because he is the executive, and it literally says executive power shall be invested in the president. So the president is the dictator of the branch. He can do whatever he wants. But I mean, practically speaking, it's like if you literally fire every one of your generals, for example, like you go on to the colonels next and things like that, and so on and so forth. Like it becomes really hard to manage things if you're getting rid of all your middle management. Like middle management is important. So
sure, yeah. Like there's a reason why like CEOs aren't directly in control of like the different franchises and stuff. Like they tend to run. That's kind of like that's actually probably a good analogy for how the presidency is in terms of its different administrations. It's guiding in terms of like policy and stuff, but it's not directly telling exactly what to do.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'm trying to say is that I agree with you, but only if the president and his staff and his subordinates are in agreement. If they're not, then it can cause problems, and that it doesn't necessarily mean one side is going to win all the time over the other. But like,
yeah, but you can also look under like the Reagan administration. You can look at what like policies under Reagan as well. There was a statute that is now, I think they still do it today, and and Trump did this a lot, where he can fire political actors. You can't fire apolitical actors, so that are in these administrations, which Trump wants to bring back. Biden got rid of it, but Trump wants to bring it back. But for political actors specifically, Trump can fire them and hire someone else. And an attorney general is a political actor, so Trump, if he refused to, Trump could just fire him if he wanted to.
Yeah, that's literally what I'm saying. But the problem, okay, so this comes to an issue of what happens if you're the president but nobody wants to work with you. Like, what happens if you're a general but your army deserts you? What does that actually mean? So,
you know what? We had that. It was Trump, and we had exactly that. It was the Trump administration. Yeah. Almost everyone unanimously didn't like working with him, and he got nothing done.
Exactly. Yeah. No. And that's my point. Is that the president is absurdly powerful when he has his subordinates working with him, and everyone's in agreement on what the objective is and how to accomplish it. When that doesn't happen, the president is super weak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a reason why, like, but especially under this new Supreme Court ruling with the president having like full immunity and core powers and stuff. And what is a core power? That tends to go back to lower states. For the most part, we have a general idea of what a core power is. That would include firing people and a bunch of other stuff, and like spying on people with CIA, FBI, etc., assassinations, and all that stuff.
If we want to have a whole discussion on presidential immunity, I would love to, because I think you and I will agree in principle about that presidential immunity is wrong, but I think there's a disagreement on how the Constitution was written. But
sure, I mean, I would,
the interpretation of that.
Sure, but like I'm also looking at like, I'm also looking at like previous statutes and stuff, right? So like it used to be the president that like president doesn't have this full immunity, and they never behaved that way either, right? They like Nixon. There's a reason why he stepped down. There's a reason why like spying isn't like a really big thing with previous presidents and a lot of other stuff. There were some fuck up things they did, sure, like Lincoln with habeas corpus.
Nixon was going to step down because he was going to be impeached and removed and then prosecuted. That was the plan. And
yeah, because of Watergate. But he was present when that happens, and he had, if he wanted to, he could have had the CIA or FBI during that time just go in and be like, "Hey, investigate this other thing," and no one could argue.
He literally, you're right. He can. And
And they couldn't even fully impeach him either because you can't investigate core powers either. So like they could.
No. Wait. Pause.
But
Impeachment is not a
I know.
judicial
No, hold on.
process.
Hold on.
What
No,
is-
I know. I know.
Okay,
Impeachment
go ahead.
is hold on. Impeachment is a Senate process, in which case it's like 2/3 of
A
majority.
political process.
It is a 2/3 majority have to agree that the president is impeached. But impeachment isn't fully removing them. To be fully removed from power, they also have to be prosecuted as well. And well, if you can't even investigate to make a case in the first place,
they just have a vote in the Senate. It's not that deep. Now,
well, you can be
so
impeached without being
impeachment is a
removed from
political-
power.
Well, sure, but okay. So impeachment and the Congress of the U.S., the House and the Senate, they do things that look like judicial processes. Like they'll do things where they'll have investigations and they'll have like hearings and things like that. It sounds like a judicial process, but the reality is that the legislative branch of the U.S. government is not a judiciary branch. It doesn't have a judiciary function. Everything it does is political, and so this leads to this thing that I can hear myself, by the way.
Sorry, that's my phone. My bad.
You're just
Fucking
checking the
turn your
stream.
Yeah, I'm having it on my phone as well. You're good.
Okay, but so this leads to this thing where you can the legislative branch can impeach literally anyone in the government for literally any reason. So you can impeach the president for doing mundane things.
You could be like, hey, I don't like the president, let's impeach him. You can do that, but impeachment doesn't remove removal from power either. There's a whole process that's involved after an impeachment hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which calls for investigations and all of other stuff that are more judicial as well.
It's still, hold on. It looks judicial, but it is not judicial. It doesn't it doesn't have to be reasonable or rational at all. You can just do it because you can. You can remove a president because we felt like it. Hello?
I'm still here. I don't feel like that's how that works. I feel like there is a judicial process involved with Supreme Court and all that other stuff, and there's hearings and everything. There's like evidence and stuff, like an actual court hearing. But if you can't even if there's no evidence, you can't even provide evidence because you can't investigate a court power, then there's no case. There's nothing there.
Where does it? Well, it's not a case. Where does it say any of this in the Constitution? Where does it say anything? And I'm not saying literally, but where does it say anything like, you have to remove a president essentially for a legitimate reason? Where does it say that?
No, I'm not saying for a legitimate. That's the whole part of the impeachment stuff, is that it doesn't have to be a legitimate reason. It's like, hey, we don't like this guy, so we're going to impeach him. But like I said, impeachment isn't a removal from power. It is the beginning process for removal of power.
So
the post-impeachment requires.
Okay, where does it say? You have to remove, the only reason you can remove a president, and I'm not saying literally verbatim, but I'm saying, where does it say in the Constitution basically that you have to have a good reason to remove a president from power?
I'm not saying that's the whole thing with impeachment. It doesn't have to be rational, but there's a post-impeachment process.
I'm not saying impeachment. I'm saying remove a president. I'm not saying impeachment. I'm saying remove.
Well, I mean,
I'm being very specific with my words.
Sure. The problem is that with any sort of court hearing, you can sue someone for literally nothing, but it can also be a case where it's a kangaroo court where everyone's in agreement that they don't like this person, so they're going to be in for the prosecutor. They're going to be in favor of the prosecutor's arguments, even if because just they don't like someone. That's just a problem with how courts are. But generally, it is the case that after an impeachment hearing, after an impeachment process, and if it is fully it does go through with a 2/3 majority in the House and Senate, there is a process that is very judicial in which there's evidence and stuff. This is what we've seen with every there's three impeachments throughout U.S. history. Trump had two.
Yeah.
It
was the one after Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson, and then there was fuck.
Oh yeah.
There was
there was the one after Andrew Johnson. It was Grant, I think. I think Grant was impeached, or he was threatened with impeachment. Well, Grant was super. I forget, but yeah, they're all. Yeah.
But there was one more. I don't know why it slipped my mind. His wife literally ran the fucking last election. Holy shit. Not the last election. 2016. Fuck. All their names are slipping my mind. It was the guy who said I didn't sleep with that woman. It was like a whole thing.
Oh, Bill Clinton. Yeah, Bill Clinton. Bill
Yeah,
Clinton. Yeah,
Bill Clinton. Yeah, so he got impeached as well.
Yeah.
But none of them
Yeah.
got removed from power. What happened was that afterwards there was a whole judicial hearing and stuff, which is evidence and a bunch of other stuff in regards with the Supreme Court, which they were found not guilty, and therefore the impeachment process dropped after that. While they
Sure.
still were impeached because there was an investigation and stuff, and the 2/3 of the House and Senate agreed. They still didn't get prosecuted because the Supreme Court didn't find that they committed a crime. That's usually how
the remove. Wait, hold on. So with the Bill Clinton impeachment, so with the Bill Clinton impeachment specifically, I remember. So for one, there was no. It doesn't go to the Supreme Court. It's the Senate. The Senate votes on. They do have a trial, but I'm just going to cut to the chase. It's not a court hearing because there's nothing in the Constitution that says the Senate has to have hearings or investigations or any evidence. Those are all internal Senate rules that were voted on a long time ago, but the Senate doesn't have to do that if the Senate doesn't want to. It's the same reason why with the you remember when Garland was nominated for Supreme Court by Obama, and then Mitch McConnell said, "Yeah, we're just not going to vote on it."
I actually don't remember any. I wasn't paying attention to politics under Obama, so I don't know any of this so far.
When Antonin Scalia died, Obama nominated Merrick Garland, who is the AG now, to be the replacement Supreme Court justice. And it went to the Senate, and it was Obama's last term. It was like the last 90 days of Obama's term. And Mitch McConnell, the Republicans had a majority, and Mitch McConnell just said, "Yeah, we're just not going to vote on it." And there's nothing in the Constitution that can compel the Senate to vote on something if they don't want to. Like, what the Senate votes on is internal Senate rules that the Senate votes on. So they changed that afterwards, but then after that they changed it back, and it's been going back and forth. But like the point is that like this, all the Constitution says is that it says the House will vote on impeachment, and then the Senate will vote on removal. There's nothing in the Constitution that says there has to be a hearing, that there has to be this court-style case and things like that. All that is said is that the Senate will do this. So how the Senate accomplishes that is internal Senate rules. It's not, and that's why I keep saying you keep calling it a judicial process, but it literally isn't. It looks like it, but it literally is not.
Hold on, but you know the problem, right? Like, there's a reason why this doesn't happen frequently, like impeachment hearings, stuff. Like, just because someone isn't liked.
Because most presidents are pieces of shit.
Hold on. It's
Trump is a piece of shit.
It's also because public opinion and stuff, right? Like, if it was just the case that people if the House and Senate were like red and then it was Biden, and they could just impeach him and get him prosecuted and everything for literally nothing, then there would be massive problems societally. So you can't just look at the Constitution and be like, this is how it will work. You have to look at throughout precedent and history and how things are actually done. And the case is that there's usually a hearing, there's usually all this other stuff going on. There's usually an actual judicial process where there's evidence and put forward and all this other stuff. And then someone is prosecuted based off of that. But this has literally just been precedent throughout like the 3 impeachments that we've already had.
Okay, well, I mean, so in that case, if you want to talk about like the practical mechanics of politics, yes, you are absolutely right in that regard. I do agree that like politics is basically, I forget who said it, but there was a YouTuber who recently said politics is the corruption that we like. And I agree with that. Like, I agree with that statement because when you look at how like politics functions, like the actual like mechanics of politics, it's always corruption. It's always backroom deals. This party will impeach this president because, he's not of their party. But then when another president does the exact same thing, they won't impeach him because he's part of their party.
Like there's nothing in the Constitution that says that like the president can't pack the court. That was the whole thing with Trump and Biden, and especially with Biden. The conservatives were like all gung ho that Biden was gonna pack the court, but that's not happened.
There's also nothing. there's also nothing saying that the Congress and the Senate have to go along with what the president says.
Sure,
and,
but
they can.
Hold on, but well, that's because separation of power stuff. But you have to look at like precedent
Exactly.
and what's all. So like for me, the Constitution isn't the sole thing that matters. You have to look at how it's been applied and all that other stuff. Just because it's not doesn't say in the Constitution doesn't necessarily mean that this is not already the process that's been standard. Like the whole presidential immunity thing. Sure, under the Constitution, yeah, the president has full control over the judicial, no, the executive branch. Yeah, there it is. So he may have full authority over the executive. However, president has been set through several different decades, several different presidencies, that they don't have full control over it. That's why Trump had to put a thing like a whole thing in that lets him fire non-political actors, because the president under a president didn't have full authority over the executive. There wasn't this thing called full presidential immunity when it came to even criminal acts. Not just civil, but criminal. Like you have to look at precedent, not just what's in the Constitution.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is when FDR, when he ran for his third term, was he breaking the Constitution when he did that? Because precedent had been set up to that point that presidents serve 2 terms and then on their last term they bow out, even though there was nothing legally binding them from doing so.
No, he did break a precedent set from previous people that, hey, we're only going to run 2 times, but like so he didn't break any laws in that case. But he did break a precedent, which is why afterwards we made sure that they can't do that anymore.
Well, I literally so you would say that FDR was in the wrong for doing that.
Yes, I would say, even though I actually really do like FDR and a lot of stuff he did, I would say he was in the wrong for doing that, because there was a precedent that he broke, even though it's not in the Constitution.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with you in the opposite direction. You're a very constitutional positivist, which I say I define that as someone who is, if it's not written in the Constitution, you can kind of you can if it's not written down in the Constitution, it's up to the whoever's constitutional duty it is to do whatever to execute it. Whereas I'm a constitutional negativist, which means like if it's not written in the Constitution, it's not a power that exists for the federal government and things like that. So when it comes to precedents and things like that, I literally don't care. Like I only care what's written in the Constitution.
See, that's fine, but like, would you at least agree that at least in some cases, like precedent does matter? Like what's been set by previous administrations is probably going to be the case for future administrations as well, until like there's a direct change otherwise.
I mean, practically yes, but I mean, just because we're probably never going to see a constitutional convention. Practically yes, but in reality, I just think we should just have if we encounter these issues where it's nebulous what it means, what is actually constitutionally right or wrong, we should just have a constitutional convention and just, write it down in the Constitution. What should the president do? Can the president just fire whoever he wants, whenever he wants? And, should the president be able to literally break laws? And the point I want to get to with this whole discussion is I agree with people that I don't think the president should be able to break laws. And, he should be beholden to the laws. But to that end, that means we should rewrite the Constitution and, come up with some way to make sure that the president can't do that.
Well, that was the original intention, right? Like it was like every 10 or 20 years or so, we were supposed to like redo the Constitution.
Well, no, that was what Jefferson predicted would happen. So that's just because Jefferson thought that's what's going to happen doesn't mean that was the intention.
Okay, well,
that's different.
So, I guess for me, like the previous precedent does matter a lot more. Like it matters almost, I think, just as much, if not maybe even a little less, but maybe just as much as the Constitution itself. What is written in the Constitution absolutely does matter, but you have to look at previous precedent on like. But you have to look at precedent to see how this was applied previously.
Which matters more? What is literally written in the Constitution or the precedent?
Well, I think they're both almost equally valid, right? I would say maybe the precedent might be a little less because it's not directly written, but it does matter in the sense that, hey, this is a standard that we have set, and the president or anyone else that wants to break it needs to like put laws in place to make sure, like, to do that. Like if they want it, like the.
So I don't. why don't we just have a constitutional convention then and actually write it down instead of doing this like weird roundabout way?
I wouldn't be against it, but that has to be something that we
Okay,
have to.
okay,
But
okay.
but that would be something that we'd have to like. We'd have to get into power and like do that ourselves, but because that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's very unpopular as well.
Well, I don't think it. I
it'd
don't
also
think
be
it'd
very
be empowered to
unpopular.
do a constitutional convention.
Well, it'd also be very unpopular.
Listen, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. You're just saying, practically speaking, because we're not going to have a constitutional convention, this is the way we have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if we could have a constitutional convention tomorrow and completely rewrite all of the Constitution, yeah, that'd be fucking great. But we can't, realistically, we're not going to be able to do that anytime soon, if at all. Let's look at previous precedent and see how things have been done for future administrations to know what to do. Instead of having this like weird roundabout thing where now the president has full authority over everything, the entire executive, and no one can say otherwise. No one can investigate him or do anything like that. Like I don't like that. Or like have and your thought experiment about the Senate and the House just unilaterally deciding to kick out the president because they didn't like him. Like there's a reason why we don't have a precedent for that, and rather we actually have court hearings and investigations and all that other stuff.
I mean, for one, no, it's not that nobody can investigate the president; it's that the House and Senate just never do. So,
well, no, before before this thing, since even though it's a core power, they can still like investigate like stuff like criminal acts and stuff, like all the stuff that Trump has done throughout his presidency and before. He could be like criminally liable for the whole January 6th and the fake elector stuff, right? Like he can be investigated for that because even though it is a core power that he can talk to the states and like finagle a lot of stuff, it's still not like it's still a criminal act to try to meddle with the election. Now it's that cases might just be dropped entirely because it's under a core act. Before they can investigate it, now they can't investigate specific things, and if they can't investigate the right things, the whole case just gets dropped.
Well, they have to demonstrate that it isn't a core act, and how they do that is they impeach the president and remove him. Which they did impeach Trump for January 6th. They just didn't remove him.
They impeached him like two or
Hold on. They impeached him. They impeached him like on the 18th of January, so it was like 2 days before he got out. They just didn't remove him because one, he left office, but two, the Republicans controlled the Senate and they were never going to do it anyway.
Yeah, but it wasn't just the one. He had like 2 or 3 different like impeachment stuff and all that other junk. And I think there's like a lot of stuff is still going nowadays.
He was impeached for the Stormy Daniels thing.
Yeah, which
I think it was Stormy Daniels. He was impeached in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, and like they pushed it back so far that now it's like it's all the way up to this point. Which good thing I'm actually glad that the whole Stormy Daniels thing went through. But
well, no, the case got it went through, but he appealed it, and then he won the appeal because of the Supreme Court.
Oh, did it actually get appealed, like fully?
Damn. But no, like literally everything that like all the court cases that Donald Trump, quote unquote, lost, they're basically null and void now.
Man, that sucks. But
wait. So I have a question for you.
Sure. What's up?
Do you know who Anwar al-Awlaki is, or was?
No. Is that the whole Obama thing that we were talking about before?
Yeah, so he was an American citizen who he joined Al Qaeda. I'm not gonna pretend that he wasn't a terrorist.
He was in the process of terrorism, right?
Sure, but okay, so he was an American citizen, right? Like sure. We both agree on that. And he, after Bin Laden died, he became the leader of Al Qaeda in Yemen at the very least, and he may have become the leader of Al Qaeda in general. I don't remember. I'm not sure how far that went, but he was very, very high up in Al Qaeda, very important leader. And Obama ordered him to be assassinated with a drone, and the drone killed him, his son, and then it was like some other American. I forget that guy's name. And then the bomb also killed like 20 people in Yemen. They were in a market, and the guys. The al-Awlaki and his son and that guy were out going to get breakfast. It was like early in the morning.
Yeah, I've heard roughly about this. Yeah.
And so, in my view, I think Obama broke his, Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights because we have a right to a trial, and things like that. And as far
Mhm.
as I know, there was no warrant for his arrest. He may have been on the FBI's most wanted, but that doesn't mean anything because most wanted, like Bin Laden was on the most wanted, but there was no warrant for his arrest.
Sure.
And then the other thing is they didn't try to apprehend him with, I would have been fine with them sending in SEAL Team 6 to try to apprehend him. And, if he had shot the SEALs while, they were trying to apprehend him, I wouldn't have cared as much. But they literally assassinated him with a drone, which I think broke his constitutional rights.
Sure.
So,
Like Obama definitely could have done better in that situation. However, I don't think this.
So the question.
Go ahead.
Well, so the question I want to ask you is, whether or not you agree with it, could Obama be let's say Obama, let's say somehow we determine that it was wrong. We can have a discussion on whether that was right or wrong, but I think that goes into the whole presidential immunity thing, and I think it was wrong. But if it was found out that Obama was wrong, do you think Obama should be prosecuted for basically murdering an American citizen or ordering the murder of an American citizen?
I could say possibly, yeah, but that would go into the whole thing of like, was he in the right or wrong in the first place? But like, if it was found that he was in the wrong, like everything he did was absolutely like wrong in every way, like fully unconstitutional, like he had no actual right to do this, then yes, we would be in the wrong, and he should be prosecuted for it.
Well, so the thing with qualified immunity, which is what presidential immunity is like, the immunity of president is based off of, is the idea that like a cop can enforce the law and he can break the law to enforce the law. So for example, I'm riding my motorcycle down the highway. I'm riding at 150 miles an hour. The cop has to drive out at least 150 miles an hour to catch me.
Yeah, but
he's breaking the law.
But this is a little different. I would say this is a little different from This is like a whole maybe different thing, because that cop can also, like, let's say you're like with a bunch of civilians, right? And he pulls out his guns and tries to shoot you and kills one of the civilians. There's no qualified immunity with that. It depends on how. There's an extent.
Exactly.
But there's an extent.
Exactly. You can't. I agree with that. You can't fire into a crowd of people, to kill the shooter. And
so
yeah, I agree with that.
My thing is that there's an extent at which case, like, they can speed, but if they end up wrecking someone else's vehicle and killing someone, then that is on them. They lose that qualified immunity because they were reckless in that case. So
okay, no, I agree. I agree with you. So I just want to say I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Go ahead.
And then the discussion. I mean, at the very least, we agree on that. So then the discussion would turn into: did Obama do anything wrong? I think you would argue he didn't do anything wrong because al-Awlaki was, a terrorist leader, and I agree he was a terrorist leader, and he was probably planning, terrorist attacks and things like that. That's a whole different discussion.
And I would even say Obama maybe a little like where it could have done, like if he did it in his home instead of like a market, it probably would have been even better because it would have been less death overall. But like that's a whole different argument altogether. And I think with qualified immunity as well with the president, I think it's a little different from a police because there is a type of qualified immunity, but I think it's a little more under the presidential's duty than like a police officer. So there might be a little bit more leeway in that.
Sure. I mean, maybe. I don't think the president can even unless someone is literally about to do something like murder or harm someone directly. Like the reason why I get a little antsy about al-Awlaki is because they say that he was planning a terrorist attack, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? Sorry, my roommate, he's going on a run or something. He's looking at me like it was a freaking schizo. But what does that mean? Because I'm a schizo.
Sure,
what does that mean?
If we wanted a whole hearing about it, I think we should be able to, so we can maybe get like documents and stuff, being like, all right, what was he actually doing? Like what threats was he gonna? Because if it was gonna be like the next 9/11, then I think you would probably say that it probably is more in the right that he should die. But it was like maybe like I don't know, like a small little like shoot up of a mall or something like that, then you'd probably say maybe not as much.
Well, okay, so the thing I don't like about the al-Awlaki assassination isn't that he was killed, because like I said, I wouldn't care if he sent in SEAL Team 6 to try to apprehend him, and maybe they told the SEALs, yeah, apprehend him, but you're gonna go and with your safeties off, ready to go, and under the table say, yeah, go ahead and kill him. I would be more okay with that. But the issue is he killed an American with a drone, and as far as I can tell, there was no due process at all behind it, and that's my issue, and that's why I think he did something wrong. But that's a different discussion. I just wanted to see if we could agree that if the extent of presidential immunity and qualified immunity and things like that, and go.
I don't think we have any major disagreements with this. There might be something minor, like I think precedent matters, and you say maybe not as much.
I mean, well, the disagreement is like we seem to really disagree on, basically that. I agree. Sorry.
Yeah, like a positive like a positive versus negative constitutionalist. I think you said.
Yeah, I'm trying to make that. That's my thing. I'm gonna write a schizo musing about it.
Yeah. So, speaking of all of this stuff with the president, what's your thoughts on the assassination stuff?
How to say something to get canceled? I'm gonna be honest. I mean, it's bad. Like, political violence is bad, but like at the same time, I kind of the way I see it is, it's like if you join the military and then you get sent to a combat zone and you get shot at, you shouldn't be surprised that you're getting shot at. Yeah, you don't want to die, but it's something that's going to happen.
Sure, but I think
and it's the same thing with politics. Well, hold on, wait, hold on. It's I don't like the pearl clutching, like this is the end of our government and things like that. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's not.
I don't think anyone's like really saying that. Like, it may be like some handful of people, but most people are.
Oh my god!
Really... You think most people are saying that?
Well, I mean, okay. So when it happens to people on the left, left-wing people say these right-wing extremists are trying to, do all this evil stuff, and then when it happens to right-wing people, they say the same thing in reverse. So
sure, but that's just the nature.
I hate it.
But that's just the nature of like the divide that we have in the U.S. But I don't think like people are actively saying this is the end of democracy, but rather most people, even higher up Dems and stuff, are saying, hey, this shit is actually bad. We need to cool our shit down and go back to what it used to be via democratic process.
Maybe
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, everyone's. Well, I mean, I've seen a lot. I mean, listen, I've seen a lot of that, but I've also seen a lot of people have really bad takes, like, oh, he shouldn't have missed and things like that. And there's gonna be always crazy to say that. So.
But yeah, that's like the handful of like the leftists, like the socialist commies and stuff, right? That's like the handful of them. But most people, like that are actual liberals, are saying, hey, this shit sucks.
Said that.
But yeah, but
Destiny literally said that.
Oh, I know. I've watched this stuff, and I think it's fucked up, and I think it's irresponsible that he's saying that. I respect Destiny for the most part, but I think this is one of those things that, like, hey, like, why the fuck are you doing this? This is clearly not a good thing.
Hey, give me 1 second. My Bluetooth headset's about to die, so I'm going to switch to a set of wired headphones. So give me
You're good, man.
1 second.
Yeah. Also, I see there's two people in chat.
Do you sound better or worse?
A little worse, but it's a little more muffled, but it'll do. It'll work.
Okay. So, but the point, to answer your question, I think it's bad, but at the same time, all I'm trying to say is that, like, it shouldn't be unexpected. Like, if you don't want to get shot at, don't go into politics, don't join the military, don't be a cop. Like,
I think when it comes to like being on U.S. soil and even being like a politician and stuff, you don't, like, if you're on a combat zone, if you're like a soldier, you're expecting to be shot at some point. It's just guaranteed that you're going to.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
But if you're on U.S. soil, and like just talking to people, doing whatever, like being let's say a public speaker, right? You're not expecting to be shot. If you're going to the mall, you're not expecting to be shot in the U.S. It happens, but this is not something you're expecting to happen. And with politicians, is that same thing. Like, you're not expecting it to happen. It can happen. Like if you're a random person in a mall, like walking around, it can happen, or in a school, but it's not supposed to happen. You're not expecting it to happen.
Okay, so just because you're not expecting it to happen doesn't mean that when it happens, you should be surprised. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think it is surprising because there has been attempts, like a lot of attempts for assassination. There's not a lot of them that succeed, but there are quite a few. But
Well, okay.
It's
So
not,
the
but
other
it's
thing
very,
is,
but it's infrequent though. Like if you're on a combat zone, it's
so
gonna be
the
frequent.
thing
You're expecting it to happen.
So the thing with the president specifically is that apparently presidential assassination attempts happen all the time, but like the Secret Service catches them well before anything happens, and they don't
Sure,
say
yeah.
anything because they don't want to, encourage other people. And normally it's
Wait,
like normally it's just losers who they try to bring a gun to a
hell,
rally and they try to go through the metal detector.
I wouldn't even quite say attempts. Like it probably stops uh like right before like any like they like person gets the guns or the bombs, like the products for the bombs, and they're already at their house like
Maybe,
ready to get them type shit. Like
maybe
there's already a manifesto that all
I've been
that shit
reading.
written up.
I mean, I've been reading into a lot of it since the assassination attempt, and apparently the reason why the president is late a lot is because the Secret Service is they're trying to secure something, or they think there's some sort of security threat, so they keep the president off of out of the public or off the main stage until they can secure it. And like I said, normally 9 out of 10 times it's just some loser that they either flagged earlier because of online rhetoric, or like I said, they tried to smuggle a weapon through
Sure.
security and they got caught.
Yeah, but like yeah, but
Stuff like
that's
that.
I wouldn't quite say that's a full-on attempt like what we saw during the rally where there
mean,
was actual shots fired. Like that, I would say that was a proper attempt. But someone bringing a weapon or like
I
making up
agree with that.
plans,
I mean, I agree with
I
that.
wouldn't classify that as an attempt. That would be just like planning for something. Like there like for if someone was planning like a shooting up of a school, and they said, let's say like, I'm going to bring a gun tomorrow, and then they get caught by the police like before they even get to the school, like before they even get home that day, like the police is already on their ass. I wouldn't say that was an attempt. I would say there was a plan to do like an attempt, but I wouldn't classify that as an attempt.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, we're just splitting hairs, but I mean, all I'm saying is that you just shouldn't be surprised. Like you should.
Well,
I
I
think
think
you should.
I think you
Expect
would
that
be.
to
I think you
happen.
should be because the Secret Service and like the local police and stuff should be able to work like enough to make sure that this like there's not even an attempt in the first place. So like I think you would be surprised if it does happen because it's not supposed to happen in the first place because you have so many people
Oh well,
around
I
you
mean,
making sure it shouldn't.
listen. Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't be surprised that if you are in a position of power and you're saying things, and just in general, like because politics, people always get pissed off one way or the other. It doesn't matter, you know, how what you say. People always get, there are some people who will just hate you politically
Hmm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I
of
don't
course.
think I don't think it should be a surprise that there is someone out there who wants to try to kill you. Now, that's not to say that you don't expect the Secret Service to do, their jobs and things like that to protect you to the best of their capabilities and all sorts of stuff, and let it get
Well,
to the point where something like that happens.
well, even like regular citizens that aren't like public figures, like politicians or public speakers or anything like that, like there's people like just like me and you who might have people that hate us so much that people want us to die. Like it's not really like this is like for people to want someone else to die is actually quite common, but for someone to actually like go through with an attempt is a whole different thing
Follow through.
altogether. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Or
I agree
even
with that.
follow
I agree
through
with
enough to
that.
actually like shoot like fire shots. So,
Again,
but like,
again,
but I
I'm
would
not
say it, but
saying, I'm not,
it's not but you don't expect this stuff to happen, especially if you're the president
I'm
or
not,
a vice president or anything like that, which
I'm
you
not,
have Secret Service and other stuff.
I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that it's a good thing that President Trump got shot
Well,
at.
no,
I'm
I'm
just
not.
saying,
I know you're
like,
not.
okay, okay. I just want to make sure. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
I know you're not saying it's
it
good,
should
but
be
I think
expected to
we
some level.
disagree that like you should expect this to happen because as like I would see them like even though they're a more popular figure, I wouldn't like a celebrity. You wouldn't expect them to like be shot or anything like that. It does happen. Like you look at the Ariana Grande concert from a couple years ago where that was shot up. She
Yeah,
doesn't expect to get shot or
they're,
get shot up, but it can happen.
yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that like people live in this weird world where the world isn't there aren't as many bad people as we think there are, and the reality is the opposite. There are lots of bad people out there that wish to do you harm and all sorts of stuff, and
Sure.
we believe the norm is that's not the case. Whereas I think we should be more realistic and understand that that is the case.
Is there a lot of people that want to
And
commit harm? Absolutely. But how many of those people actually go through with their like intentions or their wants? Is like that thing that's what's like people most so see is that the actual attempts themselves instead of
well, and so
the mens rea.
sure. Sure. Well, and with the actual assassination itself, the agents on the ground and the sniper team, they did a really good job. Like you see the shot, the first shot, and Trump goes for his ear, and the Secret Service team is
They're already on
already
him.
running out. And
Yep.
you hear someone, yeah, they're running out, and you hear someone yelling, "Get down, get down, get down." I don't know if that's
Yep.
you just hear someone yell that. I don't know if that's an agent.
And then
but you
after
hear
like
that.
after
So
like I think it was 5 shots, or it was like 4 or 5 shots, and then the Secret Service one shot instantly killed him.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was like 3 seconds or two. It was less than 3 seconds. But
Yeah, it was like
so
5 shots or something.
so what I'm trying to get at is the agents on the ground did a good thing, and I want to preface this because
Hmm.
when I say the Secret Service, I'm not saying all the agents did a bad job. The agents on the ground did a fantastic job, but the Secret Service failed because they got too comfortable with allowing security risks to be overlooked. Basically, like
I
the
agree.
roof, the fact
There
that
was
nobody was looking at that roof, and there was
Yeah,
no
there,
one
there
up
was there
there
was a
or
couple lapses, but
watching it.
I think after like because there already been investigations for the most part, and even on the shooter himself, but for the specific event, they found that the lack was actually from the local police department itself, because they were working with them. They were
Sure.
supposed to cover that
Well,
area over
okay.
there, and since
Sure.
they didn't
Sure.
have the resources, they didn't do it. Should the
I
Secret
mean,
Service send like up giving them more resources and stuff? Probably, yeah, I would say sure. But
sure. Okay. But so wait. So again, I think this is a lapse with the Secret Service because it's not the job of the local PD to protect the president. That's not their job. Their job is to
well, yeah,
enforce their local laws. Well, and the Secret Service does enlist the help of local PD because there's only so many agents, and there's when they come to an area, they try to work with the cop. But I think I think the main issue is, and you see this with a lot of federal agencies, when they work with local PD, they kind of come in and walk all over them, and they don't really talk to them, and they kind of the feds tend to act like local PD don't know what they're doing, and maybe they don't. Maybe the feds really are that better, well trained and things like that. But there's a lot of issues between feds and local PD, and apparently
yeah,
like one issue is that there was that one cop who climbed the ladder and saw the shooter like seconds
and then
before
got
he
down.
started
Yeah,
shooting.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and he
remember
got
that.
down, and I understand because the shooter he pointed a gun at him, and like
Yeah,
I
and
would
of
fucking
course you're
like
gonna back away from that
I
situation,
would
but he should have radioed someone,
yeah.
but
No, well, apparently he was trying to, but apparently how the Secret Service SOP works is that they have like a liaison who talks to local PD. So it's not like the local PD and the Secret Service are on the same channels for
yeah.
radios and things like that.
So
And so I I think overall there's what I'm trying to say is that the Secret Service failed as
no,
an
I'm saying
institution
this
at
is like
protecting the
for the most
president.
part, this is the fault of the Secret Service. They should have given them more resources. They should have worked better with the local
Yeah.
police and all
Okay.
that stuff. Like, yeah, I agree. This is more so a fault of the Secret
Okay.
Service. And because they should have provided them more
Okay.
resources, they should have had more instantaneous contact if something happened. Like all this
Yeah.
stuff, like there's a lot of things that should have gone right, that just
Okay.
didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And this
Okay.
could be this could also be a fault of like top down like control, right, instead of bottom up, like local police and stuff like having more resources and having more say over local areas because they know it better, instead of the federal government coming in big dick balling, saying like
Maybe.
they
I
must
mean,
do this, you must do that.
sure. I mean, they are trying to protect the president, so I do think the Secret Service should have precedent over command and control. But
Over
I
protecting the
agree with
president, sure.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree with what you're saying, and I understand that what you're saying is that the Secret Service should be better at coordinating with local PD.
yeah. uh
That's basically what
Absolutely.
you're saying.
Or even like providing them more
Okay.
resources for the short period of time that they are going to be there.
Sure.
I think that could also be another thing. And I think
Sure. Although,
I think going forward,
go
they'll
ahead.
definitely like start working better with local departments and stuff. Even maybe even for just a short time, they'll start doing that. If not permanently.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, hopefully, so but one thing that to kind of change the subject a little bit, but stay on the assassination. One thing I
Sure.
think you and I do agree with that this is bad because American politics isn't very violent, and like we've mentioned before, like even after the American Revolution, yeah, there was some violence by some people, but for the most part, it was like a very bloodless revolution. We didn't like the winners of the American Revolution didn't weren't vindictive towards the loyalists. and
Yeah,
the
like
royalists on America.
Like we were the complete opposite of what the French did during the Revolution. After they killed their kings and
Yeah.
queens and stuff, they started like having their own internal conflicts and bloodbaths versus we, even though
But
we had our
we
disagreements.
didn't even kill. We didn't
Yeah.
even kill our versions of the kings and queens, which were governors. We didn't even do
Yeah.
that.
I think what we did different, and I could be wrong, but like we had a set already foundation, via, it wasn't the Constitution at the time, it was the Articles of Confederation, which changed into the actual Constitution. But like we had a set document in place, being like, hey, this is what we're gonna do, then this is how we're gonna run things. The French didn't really have that until like several decades later, like a couple years to a decade later. They actually started getting their own founding document, but after the Revolution against their kings and queens, they didn't have anything. They were in pure anarchy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm taking a piss while we're doing this, but yeah,
Jesus.
no, well, it wasn't the Articles of Confederation. It was, I mean, it was the Constitution, or the Continental Congress, and then eventually it
Well, yeah,
morphed
but
into the American
there were
government.
they that was
we
that
had a
was
form of
the
government.
people, that was the group of people all like establishing like certain rules and stuff. But they created at first the Articles of Confederation, and once they realized, hey, this shit actually fucking sucks. There's so many problems with this. Let's rewrite it in secret, and that became the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, the point the point I was trying to get at is that American politics tends not to be violent, and it is surprising that someone. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't believe in any of the conspiracy theories that he was like a Trump plant, or like Trump
No,
tried to
I don't.
Get someone to pretend to
Yeah,
assassinate him, or that
or
Biden
Biden
tried to
assassinated
assassinate
him. Yeah,
Trump.
like I think they're all
Yeah,
fucking stupid.
I literally believe that like it was just like a perfect storm of like all these lapses in security, and just some rando managed to just kind of bumble his way through, but get through the lapses, and
Yeah,
take
and
a shot.
we found his manifesto as well. He actually had bombs in like the car he got there. He trespassed on the property to get up there in the first place. And with all the lapse of judgment, like the lapse of like judgments and like Secret Service and local police and all that stuff, allowed him to get into that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I haven't read anything about the manifesto, but I'm going to be honest with you. I would not be surprised if he was just a random schizo guy.
Yeah, actually, it's exactly what it was. Yeah, he had plans to leave. He was going to blow up the car.
That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say, because it's very clear that he had no concept. He didn't think he was going to die.
Yeah.
You would think anyone going to try to kill the president, or even try to hurt the president, is going to get at the very least fucked up by the Secret Service. And
so
if you take a shot at the president, you should be fully expecting someone to shoot back at you.
Yeah. So his original
wait. And so it's weird that he thought he was going to survive, because you would think if he knew he was going to die, he would have planted the bombs first, then go and shoot at the president, and then let. But it's very clear he thought.
Well, no, he had the bombs in his car. So what he was going to do was, after he shot the president, he was going to, or like it wasn't even necessarily at the president.
That's
he was
saying.
He was trying to kill the president, but he's also trying to kill other people, because it was like a mass shooting incident. He was going to blow up the car, which would draw attention over to the car, so he could slip away. But he had other plans to kill other politicians, and like several different other like incidents. Like he had all these plans already, and he he tried to kill the president, so he died.
What I'm trying to say is, we both agree that he was just a random crazy dude who had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, obviously. Like he had plans to kill Republicans, Democrats, even though what's crazy though is that like he was a registered Republican, and a lot of the stuff, like people around his circle, his high school and stuff, all agreed he was a Republican. He wore like hunting stuff to school. He was at his local range and everything. And actually, I remember seeing this other thing that was really funny and goes against what people are saying about Biden, enacting this to happen, because he actually got kicked out of his local gun club at school because he was such a shit shot.
Maybe like people are saying he was, they're saying, oh, he gave money to Act Blue, but like I don't know. I think when people are crazy, like what their reasoning for doing things doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, he may have been a Republican, but he may have just been like, I think he was just literally a crazy dude.
No, he was schizo. No, he was more schizo than both of us combined. I fully agree with that. But like people saying that he is a Democrat plant and all that other stuff, like all the evidence points towards him being a Republican. He was just a schizo Republican who who's just fucking crazy as shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Damn.
and also with the whole
Crazy.
Act Blue
I don't
thing, also with the whole Act Blue thing, what happened is that there's actually multiple people in that area that have that same name, and they think that name is actually someone else's and not the shooters.
Well,
Like the name's the
the
same, but
plot
like that
thickens.
person is different.
The plot thickens.
Yeah, like there's a whole lot of shit, but like
Very
this guy
well.
was a
I
clear
don't know.
Republican and like was schizo and wanted to cause damage pretty clearly. He had bombs ready to leave and all that other shit. It's like he was schizo, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's bad, and I don't know. We shouldn't do that.
Political assassination, like assassinations in general, are bad. Don't kill people unless it's in self-defense, and democracy is based.
Your Honor, the president was coming right at me.
Sir, he ran into the bullet.
Although, I mean,
I
some
didn't do
people.
it.
Well, some people would unironically say that shooting the president, like President Trump, could be classified as self-defense because, like for example, I'm on a Discord server with a lot of trans people, and they
Mhm.
literally believe that they were saying, "Oh, it's bad that Trump didn't die," and I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because he's literally going to genocide trans people." And
Sure, there is a fear there, but that's the whole actus and like actus reus and mens rea stuff.
I'm not trying to say the guy was a
Yeah,
lefty or anything, but like my point is that like people's interpretation of what is or isn't self-defense, like it's not as cut and dry as, oh, he was coming at me, because I could see some people, because again, these people thought the assassination was good because they thought to them it wasn't self-defense,
sure, but
even though they didn't know anything
we
at the
have
time
clear
about the
statute.
power.
But the thing is, we do have clear statutes and in the U.S. like laws and stuff that say this is what self-defense is. This is what's classified, and if you go against it, then it's not under self-defense. So like they can say it was self-defense for them, but under the statutes and stuff, it would not be classified as self-defense. I think a better thing though is something I heard like a year or two ago, which is under a democratic system, if you have someone that's undemocratic, can you cheat the system to make sure that they lose?
Yeah, can you
Like,
kill Hitler before he becomes Hitler?
well, not even kill, just like with the whole like
Or
2020, like the
jail.
2020 stuff. Like you can look
Yeah,
at the 2020
yeah,
stuff,
I
right?
know what you're saying.
Like
I
like
know what
I
you're
think
saying. Or like
that that's
have a cop arrest Hitler on bullshit charges to stop
no,
him from being
not
Hitler
even
or
like
whatever.
literally like rig the election to be like against the
Oh,
person that you
okay.
think is undemocratic, like the 2020 election, right, where people think it was rigged. Like I think it's an interesting thought experiment for in a democratic system like the U.S. Is it like okay to rig an election, to use undemocratic like things to rig an election against someone that is undemocratic? I think that is a very interesting thought experiment.
What do you
There's
think?
really
And
like
what do you
I would
think?
probably
And what do you
say
think?
no. I'd probably say no. Um,
So
uh,
even if the tide was going against you and everyone, literally the country was filled with Nazis and everyone was going to vote for Hitler, you still think we should go along with voting for Hitler? Or Hitler should be elected, even though after he's literally going to anoint himself dictator.
yeah, I would probably still say I would still say so. But I would probably end up moving somewhere else if
So
that
you're
were the
okay.
case. Like I wouldn't. I'm not saying Trump is Hitler. I'm not gonna
Very
like move
well.
if Trump wins. But let's say we did have literally Hitler. Like I was in Weimar Germany, and it was Hitler like that was gonna get into power. I would probably end up moving somewhere else before that ever even happens. Because if it's saying like, oh, this person is guaranteed to win, I'm gonna move before this shit like kicks
Okay.
off.
Okay. Okay. I mean, fair enough. I mean, dying for your principles, or not figuratively or literally. I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, but like I think like
So
violence in general is bad. Like rigging like a process in your favor is bad, even though it could be for a greater good. Like I learned this more about myself. I'm a non-consequentialist when it comes to a lot of things, and this is one of those things. The ends do not justify the means. And
I
you
agree.
can, and
I
if the
agree wholeheartedly.
actions, yeah, and if the actions are like what I'd classify as immoral, even though the ends are moral, I would still say the entire process is immoral as is.
So you've been reading Rawls, I take it.
Um, well, not much.
Maybe
I
maybe you just having maybe you just having the book is and you're absorbing it through osmosis.
Maybe so. I'm also
Because
going to
that is a
start
very
taking.
anti-utilitarian. What?
Yeah, I've never classed
Go ahead.
myself as utilitarian anyways, but I'm gonna start taking some like Vyvanse to help mitigate my ADHD so I can actually start enjoying reading. Because I think the problem, because I used to have a love for reading, all I'd ever do was read. I could literally have like my DS sit next to me when I was younger, and I would still pick up a book and read because I just really enjoyed reading. I used to get grounded from reading actually, but after I stopped
Yeah, me
taking my
too.
medicine like consistently, and like eventually I got just taken off of it altogether because I wasn't taking it, then all of a sudden I lost like not the ability to read, but like the love I had for reading. And I ended up just doing
Okay,
other stuff
well,
instead. So
that's a cute anime arc, but let's get back to the ends don't justify the means, which is, like I said, good because that's a very anti-utilitarian thing, and utilitarianism is cancer. So
yeah,
thank you, I appreciate it. I'm
yeah. I
glad
mean,
that you're absorbing Raw through osmosis,
yeah, I
just
actually
having the
when
book in your presence.
I don't even think it was that at all. Which is it's really stupid. So I actually started better
I'm making a
analyzing
joke,
my.
dude.
I know, but I started analyzing like my answer for the trolley problem a little bit more, and even though it is cringe, I did use Chat GPT a little bit to like help me like figure things out. Like I said like, hey, here's the trolley problem. Here's how I answer the trolley problem. Like, what are some things that like would fit in this? And then I provided like I had it provide me other things as well, and it fit me in a couple schools of thought, and one of them was non-consequentialism.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
The ends don't justify the means.
yeah. Also, when it comes to this specifically, I'm a deontologist as well. At least for the trolley problem, I'm a deontologist. Under no
Good,
circumstance would I ever pull the lever. So,
good.
yeah. Would you?
Reject Platonism. No, I wouldn't pull the lever.
It also said I had virtue ethics as well.
Yes! Oh my god, yes! 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 Oh my god, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
You are you are you are an Aristotelian, and you will
Yeah.
soon be a true liberal like me.
Damn. Well, I mean, like my principles and stuff haven't changed at all. So,
Well, I mean, my point is that you're just recognizing what you really truly are,
yeah. So that was
which
interesting.
I'm all for.
It also had me at scientific realism, existentialism, and determinism, obviously. Moral
Yeah.
relativism, phenomenology, humanism, psychoanalysis, and pragmatism.
Moral relativism gets kind of gray because you can quickly become a nihilist if you go too deep into moral relativism
Sure.
because
I
you'll be
don't
like,
think.
well, nothing literally matters, but
Well, I think things
light
do.
moral
Well, I think for
relativism is
me
good.
though is that even though I do have this like this viewpoint, I do think though that like things do matter. It's just that people create their own meaning in a sense, or at least through deterministic forces, like people get their own meaning in some way or another. Um, and
Sure.
when it comes to morality, like I tend to see it more as like a cultural phenomenon, where like there's a bunch of
Yeah,
individuals
I
that
agree.
agree to a certain set of principles that then becomes a cultural
Yeah,
like idea of what is and isn't moral, what is right, what is not right, etc., which is part of
yeah,
like a social
I agree.
contract.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything said, which is why we should we should only live around those that we hold similar values to, and if you don't hold similar values to them, just don't hurt them. Just live and let live.
Sure. Um, yeah. I was actually talking to someone before about like we were talking about race and all that other bullshit. But it was I think taxation is not theft from that one server. We've talked with him before. And we were talking and he was talking about covenant communities and his like anarcho-capitalism. And I was like, and I said like people would most likely like divide themselves on like ideas and principles rather than like race or any like genetic characteristic. And he said the first thing they would do is race or some sort of genetic characteristic, and then they would do ideas, which was wild to me because that's clearly not.
Can you say that again? Can you
Okay.
say that again? Sorry.
So he said that well, what part was that you didn't hear, or should I repeat the whole thing?
Just 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 repeat the whole thing. I don't know why my brain just like all of a sudden went blank. I'm sorry.
So so we were talking about like race and like covenant communities because he's an anarcho-capitalist, and I was saying that people are more likely to divide themselves upon ideas, upon different principles that they like. If there's a certain people that agree with each other, they're going to form their own communities. And he was saying that the first thing they're going to do is divide themselves on race, and then they're going to do like principles and ideas afterwards. And I thought that was stupid.
Well, I mean, okay, so I don't think race actually exists as a
Sure,
biological thing.
I
I
don't
think,
either. Yeah,
but humans, I think, I think what race gets at is that humans are tribal, which means and like you should read after you read or after you read Rawls, you should read Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene because
hmm,
genes just want to replicate themselves. And your family members are more genetically similar to you, so you're gonna have
yeah.
more affinity for your family members, and that's why humans are tribal because you're more genetically related to people of your tribe.
Yeah. However,
And
I
so, so would people divide themselves on race? Maybe, but it would actually be like if we went literally like if tomorrow we all woke up and there was everyone agreed anarcho-capitalism was the way to do it, we would immediately run to our friends or not our friends, we'd immediately run to our family members and
sure.
go from there
Yeah, but I think,
immediately. Like we would
however,
divide each other by family members.
I think, but over time, it's not gonna. But like the first principle that people are going to divide themselves on, if we all just went like fully tribal and stuff, is like ideas. Like if you agree with someone on something, then you're more likely to get along, and a bunch of other stuff. Than like, oh, I'm white and you're black, we can never get along. Even though we may have the same idea, people
I
are going to
mean,
divide themselves
I
more on
think I
ideas than
think
anything else.
I think ideas are so. I think like, and I don't agree with conservatives all the time, but I do think family is the primary driving force behind that, and I do think ideas are important too. Like, um, so you should read Richard Dawkins' The Self
Yeah,
Gene because it's where he coins the term meme, and memes are just shared cultural ideas and things like that. And the reason why memes are important is because they help signify people because of how genetics works. Like the idea is that certain behaviors are shared by certain groups of people, and if if you see that idea or behavior, it means that that person is genetically related to you and things like that. So like that is important too. But I don't know. I think biology is a very prime driving factor for the majority of people. That isn't to say that there wouldn't be people who don't form groups based on ideas, but I'm just saying I think the majority of people, like more than 80%, would go immediately to biological relations first and foremost before ideas. Not to
sure,
say that
but
our ideas aren't important.
so like we were, let's say hypothetically the US tomorrow or even today like formed like its own like anarcho-capitalist like covenant communities and stuff. What we'd probably see is like we wouldn't see like black people form their own communities, white people form their own, Asians, etc. What we'd most likely see is like it'd probably be more of a class distinction because class tends to be a better indicator of like how you're going to act culturally. So like there might be like a group of poor people that are mixed, white, black, Asian, etc., that are going to have their own covenant community because they share a lot of the same values um, with each other, being that they're poor and they have roughly the same culture. Then middle
Maybe.
class will have theirs, upper class will have theirs, and there might be some small distinctions, but overall we're going to see like classes like forming their own covenant communities overall.
Maybe,
And then,
but classes intermingle too. I mean,
well, yeah, that,
you saw that like in medieval Europe, like
well,
the
yeah,
peasants and the
mhm.
royalty they could go to the same churches and stuff like
Well,
that. It
yeah,
wasn't like
I'm not saying,
I,
but like, I'd say for the most part, we would see this because culturally, like, there's clearly like a poor culture. There's a like lower middle, upper middle, like rich culture, and all that other stuff. Like, there's clearly different cultures upon these different class brackets. There might be some intermingling overall as these groups like interact with each other because of proximity. But you're going to mostly see that these groups are actually they would divide themselves upon that different cultural like
sure.
mentality based off of class.
Sure, but it would be more like the families form their own little small tribes, and then like confederations would be built by people who share like religion or maybe like you were saying class things and things like that. But like I think that overall, I mean I do like I said I do think ideas are important, but I do think those biological. I think people primarily would think about the biological things, and then ideas would come as a secondary thing to unite more groups of people because bigger groups of people equal more protection.
I would say
from
it'd be more of a proximity thing. It wouldn't be like a familial thing. Like if we went to
yeah.
all
No,
this
I
to shit
agree. I
tomorrow,
agree with that.
I wouldn't be going to my parents. Let's say they lived like 5 hours away. I wouldn't be going 5 hours away to my parents. I would rather be with my neighbors and stuff that I have a closer like tie to. And when it comes to class distinctions, that is the case that like the poor people, middle, rich,
Well,
etc. Like they have their
I'm
own
not
different
saying,
groups.
but I'm also not saying literally everyone would do the way I'm saying. I'm saying the majority of people would do it. Like, but I'm not saying everyone would
Well,
do
I'll say
that.
if the
Like,
world was ending tomorrow, they'd
people
probably go
are
to like.
complex.
I mean, yeah, if the world was literally ending tomorrow, like people would probably go to their families or people they cared about the most, for that
Well,
situation.
I'm not
But
even saying ending.
well, yeah, but
I'm
like
not
I'm
even
saying,
saying
but
ending. I'm just saying like
for like
a
long
reset.
for a long period of time, right? Like maybe at first they might go to their families as like some sort of comforter or anything like that. But then for long periods of time, we're gonna see like different like ideas and stuff like are like people within proximity are going to like be forming their own communities because generally it's also the case that proximity it gives a good indicator
Well,
of
yeah.
like
I
what
mean,
like the shared ideas.
well, that's. I mean, like do you know who? Do you know the Iroquois Confederacy? Do you know anything about that?
Um, it sounds familiar. I've heard of the Iroquois
So
before, but
the Iroquois. Well, the Iroquois weren't a people. They were
there
actually
was
a
different
confederation
confederation of
of.
tribes, right?
Yeah, there was four, and then it became five
Mm-hmm.
after the European settlers came in. But you're right. So it was five tribes, so five extended families basically. And the reason why they were a confederation is they shared a language. They spoke Haudenosaunee, which was their
Mm-hmm.
language, and that's what they called themselves.
Yeah.
Uh, and then they had similar cultural practices, like they lived in long houses, and they had this like uh, cultural governance of like this matriarchy. But then they had these like they called them sachems, but the settlers called them chiefs, and you know the sachem governance and things like that with matriarchy rule and things like that. So it's like that's what would happen overall. It would be like these families of people who have similar values, whether that's literally like, oh, you know, I'm a communist, so I'm going to go join other communists, or like languages or culture. That's like that's how it is already. Like, yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, but so that goes with more what I'm saying is that people would divide themselves more on ideas and cultural rather than like race or like any physical characteristic. It's going to be like shared attributes culturally.
Maybe. Like I said, I believe race is bullshit, but
Sure.
people a lot of people couch race as an important thing, and I think race is a cultural thing. Like I think you can be
Well, yeah, it
culturally
is
black or
clearly.
culturally white, and so I think people in that regard, people would um they would come together on racial quote unquote lines, even though it's horseshit. So
Well, I'm going to say this one last thing and I'm going to the bathroom then you can talk about like your schizo website. But
can't
I'm just
wait.
going to say so the problem with the US is that like cultural like when it comes to these class distinctions it is the case that it's almost like a racial divide because of like previous discriminations and stuff. So like if it was tomorrow you probably would see like some of
Yeah,
this racial stuff, but that's only because of like current problems in regards to like wealth inequality. So anyways, I'm going to go to the bathroom real
yeah,
quick, talk
yeah.
about your schizo website.
Well, I'm going to talk about the racial thing. Well, and I agree with that. Like I said, I don't believe there is a black race or white race. I think there is black culture in the U.S. and that was created because of the racial discrimination from slavery and then Jim Crow and then all that stuff. So I think that is a problem, and I think as time goes on, we'll see more and more just natural integration because I mean, people people in the end broadly are similar deep down. Like they're actually more similar than they are different, and the differences we have are actually really, really, really minor. So I don't see a future too far in the future where racial divides are actually that big of a deal. So I do think that racism will we will eventually conquer racism, but it's going to be a while. But I don't know. I think it will go away eventually, which is a good thing because race, like I said earlier, racism is literally dumb. I think people who believe race is important are literally low IQ and don't understand things. They
True.
can't actually see reality for what it is.
Agreed.
Did you listen to everything I said?
No, because I was in the bathroom, but I heard that last bit about
Oh, okay.
people who believe race is real is low IQ. I agree with that.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, basically what I said is I think I agree with you. I basically said race is a cultural thing. There's cultural black and cultural white and things like that. But I was saying as time goes on, that those distinctions are going to go away. We're already kind of seeing them go away and
Mhm.
things like that. And I foresee a not too distant future where people don't really talk about race as really anything important, which is a good thing.
I mean, it's clearly not important at all, but yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, like you were saying. I think class. I think like I say. I think family is very important because just how genetics works. But I agree with you that class is also very important too.
Yeah, I would say like especially like the divide in the U.S. The biggest problem is class based. Which if we could try to mitigate like
Kinda.
that class distance, then like we like I'd say when it comes to Marx, that's probably one of the few things I do agree with is that like the biggest driver for a lot of conflicts, like at least in the modern era, is class based.
I think there are. I mean, I think there is. I think especially today because of how bad wealth inequality is. Although, I mean, people talk about wealth inequality today, and and it's kind of hard to measure wealth inequality in the past because how wealth was measured in the
I mean,
past is
there was
different. But
monarchs
like,
and stuff, and they would hold all the wealth. So yeah,
yeah, I
there'd be the
mean,
serfs.
well, it's not even just they held all the wealth. It's like monarchs literally had the legitimacy to rule, and you didn't. And you like a lord or a vassal of a monarch literally had legitimate, rights to land that no peasant, no commoner could get unless they jumped through some extreme hoops. Whereas today, yeah, Elon Musk is I don't like Elon Musk because he sucked off the titty of the government to get rich. But like I mean, in theory, anyone can do that. So,
Sure. Yeah, but
but
like,
I do think there are I think there are cultural differences in the U.S. Though. Like
well, yeah, and I
it's
would say
not just
a lot of it's like I think class based instead of like racial or anything like that, or like there's like first
maybe
generation immigrants are gonna have like their own in a sense like cultural like thing because of where they came from. But once you get to like second and third generation, a lot of those stuff go away, and what you tend to see is like an
I agree.
overwhelming thing like difference is based off of like a class, like class culture.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also when before I went to Morocco, I was hanging out with some guys in the South, and I went with a bunch of guys that were from the South. And there are like Americans are very similar to each other, but there are minor distinctions with Southerners, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and like to outsiders, people from the Midwest and Pacific Northwest are mostly the same, but to us, there's vast differences. Um, these guys were specifically from Tennessee, so um, yeah. But like there are distinctions and there are cultural distinctions. And I think those would be important too. And I think a rich person from Tennessee would get along a lot better than a poor person from Tennessee or get along with a poor person from Tennessee than a rich person from Tennessee than a
Well,
rich
sure,
person
but
from Oregon.
that can get into like proximity. Like you're closer to this person, so you're more likely to have the same values and beliefs and stuff, which are ideas. But like overwhelmingly, you're gonna see like a lot of like distinctions on a local level being like a class based thing. Where like poor people are gonna have their own instance class structure, like or cultural structure. Lower middle is gonna have its own. Upper middle is gonna have its, and then rich, like the wealthy will have their own.
Maybe,
On a local level, you see this,
maybe
and well,
most
yeah, on a local level, you see all this.
maybe maybe, but like most of the conflicts in human history were it was like rich people versus rich people basically. Like most wars were like
Well, yeah,
it was
it's
like
gonna be
it
like
was literally monarchs, the
sure,
richest people fighting each other.
yeah, and then the poor are the ones that like went to fight basically a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
Well, and they, I
but what
mean,
you
well,
I'm also
hold on. I just want to say something. For most of human history, the soldiers who fought were actually very rich people, and they were rich because one, you had to be rich to join the military, basically, because you had to supply your own arms and armor and things like that. But two, um, they were rich, but when they would go on campaign, they were either paid with bounty from the spoils of war and things like that. So if you went to war, you were already probably rich, and you would just get richer because you were literally extracting wealth from the people you were fighting and conquering. as
Sure.
war booty and things like that.
I mean, yeah, but like I was saying before, a lot of the like it's more so on a local level. You see a lot of this like different cultural stuff based upon class. Once you broaden out a little bit more, you can see like, oh, it's like it's a very regional thing. But as you get
Okay.
like as you
Well,
get rid of
in that case,
regions,
you're
you
right.
see that.
Okay. Well, I mean, in that case, you're right. But I foresee that if tomorrow there was a great reset and we ate the bugs in the pod, I think that regionalism would set in very quickly, and people would, like I said, they would go with people who they were more culturally similar to.
Yeah, which it still goes back to what I was saying about ideas instead of race, right? That goes back to what I'm saying, where it's like if there's a general agreement upon an idea, then people are going to divide themselves on that idea. Like I'm gonna have probably more in line with like my neighbors than I am gonna be with someone from like Texas or California. So I'm more likely to form a group with the people around me.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're basically just going over the anthropology of how how individuals form families and how families form tribes and tribes form nations and nations form states and all that stuff.
Yeah, etc. etc. Which is against anarchy because there'll always be a state of some kind.
Well, I mean, so we live in anarchy. We live in the state of nature. We just pretend we don't, and everyone else agrees.
You're back at this stuff, which I still disagree with.
Well, I mean, that's literally how it is. I mean, that's literally what you described. So.
Well, I mean, I also don't believe in like natural rights and all that stuff. Still, like, I still don't believe that those actually exist.
How can you be a virtue ethicist if you don't believe in natural rights? Like, virtue ethics don't exist without natural rights.
That's just what it said. Like I didn't like.
You have some cognitive dissonance, sir. You need to go meditate some more.
I didn't look like strictly into it. I just said like, oh, this is what this says. Okay, that's cool. And I didn't really I didn't look too far into it because I don't really.
Yeah, and like, I'm just saying you need to meditate some more and think about why you're wrong.
Jesus. No, it's just when it comes to rights, it tends to be the case that you actually see like how it goes is like there's this societal consensus via like a social contract where people have an agreement upon what is right and wrong, and that's where you get like rights and stuff from. That's just what you see.
If you literally hold me down, and you literally cover my mouth and you literally prevent me from speaking, you are right. You can infringe on my rights, but that requires practical force outside of me. What I'm saying is when rights inherently exist, it just means that without an outside force, I can just do it.
I don't disagree I disagree that that's a right. Like that's not I don't believe that's what
that's literally what I'm saying a right. That's what I'm saying a right is. So like, this
just gets down to semantics because I don't believe that's what a right is. Rights tend to be like a societal like construct, in which case this is what you can versus can't do. They're like permissions within a society. Just because you can do something, I wouldn't classify that as a right to do something. So this could just be semantics.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm trying to say that like you literally can do it. Like that's all I'm trying to say. And you're saying like what I'm saying is before society, before anything else. Like I'm not saying that this actually happens in principle or in actual reality, because there's no way unless you go to a deserted island, to get away from people. I'm just saying like in this thought experiment, if there were no other people, that's what a right would be. Like that is the mechanics of rights. And then from there, when you introduce other people into it, then we get into the discussion of how do rights function when there's other people. And then that's another discussion. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I would still say in like nature, you wouldn't like you in my eyes at least, you wouldn't have like you still don't have rights. Like rights are sort of like a social like construct of its own. It's a societal consensus of what is right and wrong. And if you don't have a society and you're just alone in the forest, even though you can do something, you don't technically have a right to anything or anyone or any action.
You have maximum rights. You can do whatever you want. Well, there's no one to stop you.
I still disagree that like being able to do something. I still disagree that that's not what a right is, at least in my eyes. Like this is more like a semantic argument. Like
read some Rousseau, man. Read some Rousseau.
Like
read some fucking Rousseau.
Like like you would say, like, just because you have the right, like, in your eyes, just because you have the right, quote, to do something, doesn't mean you should necessarily do it. And I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Whereas I'm saying,
You
like,
have
you
the
don't have the
right to murder, but I don't want to be murdered, and so if I don't want to be murdered, I should not do that to other people. So
sure. And
I
I
should
would
treat
say,
people exactly how I want to be treated.
sure, and I would say at the beginning, like, that's not a right in the first place, and therefore you don't have, in a sense, the right to do it,
No,
because you're
you do
infringing.
though. You can do it. There's nothing stopping you
I
unless
that's but
someone
like
literally
this is
infringes
our
on
this
you.
is but this is our fundamental disagreement of I don't believe that the ability to do something is a therefore a right to do something. That's where we have a
It's
fundamental
because,
disagreement.
again, Sonic, the reason why is because I keep saying, I've said this every single time, before anyone exists, and you for some reason, I don't know why, but you refuse to consider that whether or not other people being in this thought experiment are important or not. And I disagree. Other people existing in this thought experiment, or the lack of existence of other human beings, is not important in whether the actual fundamental mechanics of what a right is.
So like I could say like, hey, I'm gonna pick up this stick. This stick is mine. I have the right to do with everything I want to do with it. You can say that all you want,
Sure.
but in my eyes, you wouldn't have a right. Like just because you can do anything you want, like anything, and you can do whatever you want with a stick or whatever. That doesn't mean you necessarily have a right to do it just because you can do that thing.
Where does ownership come from then?
Ownership. Oh, I'm glad we're getting to this because I've been talking about to Ancaps about this more recently in terms of like collective property and all that other shit. So ownership tends to come from like it's a contractual thing based off of like societal like understanding of what like you can and can't have. So like if I purchase it,
What if
like
there's
if
no
I
one else around?
well then you that would get into like a might equals right type thing where like say, hey, this is my stick based off of my own standard, but someone else could say to their standard that that is their stick actually.
What
And
if
then
there's no one? What if there is no one to do that?
it'd still be a might equals right thing because it'd be might equals right if that's the case. But for the most part, ownership is even this in this case, it's still a contractual thing, but instead you're making a contract with yourself in this case, where as long as I can fend the stick, it is my stick. But when it comes to like societal understandings, it's still contractual, in the sense like, hey, I bought this TV with money. This is an agreed upon like currency, so this is a legal binding thing, and the receipt that I get afterwards is a physical contract in a way of like a purchase that this is my TV. And so like ownership in general is I would say ownership by its totality is very contrary. But the way we settle disputes is through like contracts.
Sure. And the reason why is because if we didn't, otherwise it would be a might makes right situation, and then you would just have everyone like literally either occupying their property at all times,
Yeah, but
literally
that's
killing
still
anyone who tried
that's
to
still a
infringe on.
that the thing that's like yeah. I don't like my I don't so I don't.
What you're observing. What I'm trying
Go
to
ahead.
say is what you're observing is a consequence of the practical mechanics of ownership. Like you're saying this thing that this contract system that exists is like you think it's the inherent thing, whereas I'm saying the contract system came about because of the might makes right system and the inherent the practical mechanics of what ownership is.
So for the most part, ownership tends to be a might,
Because we live
especially
in a
over
state of
like
nature,
land
apparently.
disputes and all that other stuff. It tends to be the case that it is usually like might is right. Like the reason why Palestine has never been its own country is because they've lost every war for their independence, and like they don't have a right to that land. It's Israel's land. Because they have that might over it, they can defend it, etc. For the most part, that tends to be like very tribal. For property norms. However, the way we in the modern era settle disputes is through contracts. When it comes to might equals right, though, it's still a contractual thing, but you're forming a contract with yourself. In which case, if I cannot defend the stick, it is not my stick, or if I can't defend this land, it's not my land, it's someone else's. But for the modern era, we use these contracts as a way of determining absolute ownership over something or some type of ownership over something, saying, hey, here's legal tender for, let's say in our system, money, right? Like the dollar, the US dollar. I pay $1 for a candy bar. That dollar is a physical proof of purchase, and that well, the receipt is a physical proof, like a physical contract of ownership over something, and the means is the money to show that this is a legally binding contract.
Yeah.
But
Again,
it's
though,
all
this is all
contract
stuff
theory
that
though. But it's all contracts. All ownership
but
is
what
contrary
I'm
in
trying to
contracts.
now, it wasn't always
Well,
like that. That's
no,
what I'm
it
trying to
even
say.
that's why
And
I
in
said
fact,
even with
it
Midas.
doesn't. It's not like that. It's
That
not even like that in the state of nature. Like, you can come into
that's
dispute with an
no.
animal, and the animal doesn't give a
Hold on.
fuck about your contract.
I explained what, like, for the mighty was right. It's still a contract, but you're forming it with yourself. Or if I cannot defend the stick, with my life or anything like that,
Okay.
or by any means
Okay.
necessary, then it is no longer my stick. You are forming a contract with
Yeah.
yourself in that case. That is what ownership
Okay.
is
Okay.
through contracts.
Okay. I mean, in that regard, yes, I agree. But
Sammy said the other
yeah.
guy is right.
Okay. What?
Sammy said the other guy is right.
Who?
Someone in
Who's
the
the other
chat.
guy?
You're the other guy.
Who's the other guy?
You.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'm glad I have a simp. Thank you.
No, like the way that we understand like
simp.
ownership is through contracts. That's like all ownership norms and stuff are through like some sort of contract, either with yourself or with some sort of greater society.
Okay.
But and this
I
also
understand.
sure, and then this also goes into the whole idea of collective property and stuff, which you're okay
I don't
with.
disagree that you can't have. Well, yeah, I don't disagree
But sure,
that you can't have
but
collective property. Everyone
sure, but like
just has to agree to it. The issue is who agrees to it
yeah.
and how.
Well,
That's
this
the
gets
issue.
into like this gets to like my idea as well that that ownership in general is also like all contrary. Like anyone can decide that, hey, I actually own this thing, or someone else can say, hey, I own that same thing. And it could be the case that for like absolute control over the thing, either one of you have it or neither have it. That
Yeah,
is
it's like the moon. Who owns the moon? Like, does the U.S. own the moon because we landed astronauts on it and we planted a flag? I mean, maybe, but you know. So I agree.
sure, yeah, and but when it comes to like property in general, like property norms, it's all contrary. There is no like such thing as a contradictory like statement when it there's one in which case I would say you own this and you don't own this. That is clearly contradictory. But if we both say that we own something, then it is contrary. All property norms are contrary, in which case one or the other control it or neither control it in its totality. That gets to the whole idea of collective property and stuff being like still contrary instead of contradictory, in which case absolute ownership is negated, but ownership itself isn't because of that contract that we talked about earlier.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was having a discussion with an ANCAP on YouTube, like for the last like week or so. It's very occasional, like every couple of days he'll respond and then I'll respond shortly after.
You already know I don't like ANCAPs because I think
well, yeah, I know. But like this is something
view of what ownership is.
I know this, but this is something that I've been like discussing, and like have actually been like putting actual thought into. Is like, well, what is going on with this? And then I came up, and it was like a couple months or a year ago, in which someone in one of the ANCAP servers I'm in was saying like, no, it's actually not contradictory, it's contrary, and this is like my enlightenment period for like what is property. This is what started it. And then I started having discussions with ANCAPs and stuff about it. It's like, no, it's not contradictory. It's actually contrary. This is what contrary means. When it comes to multiple variables, by its nature, it is a contrary thing. And then more recently, I was thinking about it even deeper. I was like, wait, hold on. This is all contract stuff. Like, it's all based off like some sort of social contract or like individual contract where you're like, in a sense,
social contract. Social contract gang strikes again.
Yeah, well, like this is all like it's like all ownership is contractual, and then I was thinking like, hold on, all ownership is contrary as well, and the way we study these contrary positions is through that contract.
And this is the thing I hate about modern ANCAPs is that they like fundamentally what you're saying is that everything is based on a social contract, which I agree with because I believe in the social contract because it fucking exists. But the problem with ANCAPs is that they're like, well, I didn't literally sign the contract at birth. It's like, it's not like the biggest thing that people mistake about like social contract theory is that it's not literally a physical contract that you sign.
Yeah.
What it is social contract theorists are like, hey, why do humans live together and not just like kill each other as soon as they see each other and things
Yeah.
like that? And it's a backwards evaluation on human behavior to not want to kill each other, and
Yeah.
it's based on like game theory and things like that. So
Yeah, and what
yeah.
we see, what tends to be the case is that how we get to this like social contract via like rights and like rules and regulations and stuff is through just a general acceptance upon like via individuals.
Well,
That's why how it is
well,
in the U.S. and most
it's a
of the
game.
world.
It's a game. It's a game theory. It's a game theory calculation. You have a greater benefit by cooperating than competing.
But it's
So
I would like, but if you want to look at it like in its like roots, the way like this contract comes about is through a general acceptance over what is right and wrong, over what is a rule and what isn't. Um, and then that's how you get to like the game theory and stuff. Where like, hey, if I don't break this rule from this social contract, then nothing's going to happen to me too, and you won't break the rule against me as well. That's like a second level, but the first level is just a general societal agreement upon what is good and bad, what is moral and immoral.
yeah, well, I mean, I do think human societies, like I said, human societies are familial first, but I do think because of how human biology works, we are like kind of psyoped by our biology to think that behavior and but with behavior, you know, agreed upon values and norms are familial ties and things like that. So I agree
Sure.
with that.
If you want to start with that, you can. But like the bottom rung of social contract theory is just a general societal agreement, and then that's how you build everything else off of
Yeah,
that. Which it all starts with
yeah, yeah.
individuals, though. And
Yes,
it
yes, I agree.
it's
I agree with that
yeah,
wholeheartedly.
yeah. Like if we I wonder if there's like a good way to like get ANCAPs to like accept this in some way, may not like fully accept it, but like have some general acceptance of
Well,
like this is how
they,
societies run.
well, they, well, they literally just reject like they're kind of like communists almost, where they reject how human behavior functions and things like
Well,
that. So
like I think when it
it's
comes
not
to like a
possible.
lot of libertarian and like ANCAP like theory, a lot of it comes down to well, ownership. Like what is ownership? And then if you can try to like break that a little bit, then maybe you can break up like further things as well. So that's my whole thing with the collective property. If you can prove collective property is true, that's one of the fundamental things about ANCAP theory that like start breaking. And if you can
No,
prove that it's not
they
contradictory.
literally don't believe human behavior actually exists.
Well, yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say.
but I know, but like, but I'm saying that one of the foundations of like ANCAP and libertarian theory is the idea of ownership, like what like ownership is, and a lot of it's like homesteading principles and stuff. If you can prove that a lot of that stuff is actually not quite true, and that actually it's something else, like I was saying earlier in regards to ownership being contrary, and it's a contractual thing, either with yourself or with a greater society, then you can start like breaking up like further things as well. But you got to start with the foundation there for this.
I guess. I mean, one thing is that they're like you, where they believe that values and ideas are more important than actual behavior. So
Mm,
I disagree.
okay.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I think
You
I think over
both
time
you
it
and
can.
them. Oh, go ahead.
I just said I think
You,
over time
you,
it
you all
could.
have to you all have to agree on the fact that human behavior is X or Y or whatever,
Well, I think a
because
lot
that's
of human.
all social
Well,
norms.
I mean, a lot of human behavior is very deterministic based off of like brain and like societal stuff. Like yeah, like that's clearly true. It's very deterministic. Um, I'm
Yeah,
not
I
against that
agree.
at all.
Humans are I think humans are a little special because we can at least understand that we are engaging in a behavior, and we try to rationalize it, unlike
But yeah,
animals, which are
that's
just
yeah, that's one of the things
purely
that
thinking or
we
purely
have.
reactive.
Yeah, we're a little bit more logical than like animals. Well, most other animals because we are
Well,
animals
literally,
ourselves.
well, yeah, well, what I'm saying is humans are animals, but we can take action, whereas animals are exclusively reactive. And what I mean by that is like a dog only hunts when it's hungry, whereas humans, yeah, we'll hunt when we're hungry, but we'll also hunt for sport. We have other reasons to do it. We have these, there will be like a cultural ritual that may have been done originally for an animalistic reason, but people then engage in it for other reasons that aren't purely animalistic. realistic. So, like we understand that we are doing something, and we can understand why we are doing it.
So under
Whereas
my
animals
one of
can't.
so going back to a little bit of virtue ethics, just like a quick sidestep. I have one of my notes about a key aspect of virtue ethics being, let's see, this approach focuses on being a morally good person rather than strictly adhering to rules and evaluating consequences.
Yeah, you choose to be a good person. Is
Well, yeah,
basically
and
what Aristotle said.
sure, and I don't see how this necessarily goes against anything I was saying before. Where I think that it's good
I
to be
never
a
said it
morally,
did.
it's like, well, you said like, how can you like be like a virtue ethicist, or I can't fucking speak. Like how could you do this, but also say like natural rights don't exist?
In order to be a virtuous person, you have to be able to choose to be a right person, which means
Well, it couldn't be,
you need to have the choice to do it,
well,
which
hold on,
requires
couldn't it,
natural rights.
well,
Natural
couldn't
rights,
it,
like, go ahead.
well, I'm
Go ahead,
saying,
go ahead, go ahead.
couldn't it still be the case that like you can like, because we both agree that morality is like very relativistic. There's like no like natural morality. Nothing absolute. It's very like subjective,
There's no
based off of personal.
there's no higher power dictating morality. I'll agree to that.
You know, you think that there's like an objective morality?
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there is no higher power dictating what is or isn't moral.
I heard that. Yeah, I understand that, but that doesn't necessarily negate
Okay.
the fact that there could be an objective morality. I don't think there is. There doesn't appear to be anything
Well,
like that. I'm asking you, even though you don't believe in a
well,
higher power, is there an objective morality?
yeah. Well, I mean that's literally like agnosticism is what I'm saying. Like I don't know, so I can't know.
Well,
So I'm
even
not
like,
going to say there is or isn't.
well, even under my framework, right, where like morality is very subjective, based off of individual and like cultural societal standards and stuff. Like I have my own standard of what a morally good person is, and while you may disagree with it, I have my own standard, and I think this is a good standard to follow.
Sure.
And we should try
I mean,
to adhere
I
to it
agree that's how it
strictly.
works practically.
Well, sure. So
I
then,
agree that's how it works actually practically in reality.
sure, but this has nothing going against, like, nothing I'm saying is like against virtue ethics. But I can still be against like
I'm
things like
saying you
natural
have to,
rights, but rights can be like a societal construct as well.
again, I think you have a vast misunderstanding of what a right is. Like, I think you have a little bit of cognitive dissonance because in order to be able to do that, you have to have literally the capability of doing that.
I don't think it's
And
necessarily.
idea,
Well,
it's
that's. I don't
literally
think it's a
you can only
cognitive
do that. You
dissonant
can
thing.
only do that. Hold on. You can only do that if other people basically allow you to do that.
So, well, I'm saying I don't think it's a cognitive dissonant thing. I just have a different understanding altogether of what a right is, because I see them more as permissions within a societal context instead of just something like
Yeah,
you're innate, you're born with.
You are literally saying that if you want to be able to even understand anything moral, you have to have permission from other people, which I disagree.
No,
I
I'm
think
not. I'm
people
not saying that. Hold on,
just
I'm not saying that at
on their
all.
own can do that.
I'm not saying that at all. Like,
That's
just
literally what
because
you
you can,
believe.
like, just hold on. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it's necessarily right, but it's not stopping you from doing it,
I agree.
even though it may not be a right.
That's
so like,
literally
like,
what I'm saying.
hold on,
Literally
hold
what
on,
I'm
hold
saying.
on. But like in China, like you don't really have the right to free speech. You can say whatever you want, and that doesn't matter. But it's not a right. It's
Yes,
not a
it
permission
requires
given
the
by
government.
that. It
It,
is, but it's not a permission
the
given from the
government,
general society,
has to
even
stop
though
you.
you can
The
do
government
it.
has to stop you. Yeah, the government
Sure.
literally has to stop you from doing it.
But that doesn't
They
make
have
it
to
a right,
stop you.
though, right? But it still doesn't make it a right to do so. That's what I'm
So
saying.
you believe in positive rights, which means that they are granted to you, whereas I believe in negative rights, which is they just inherently exist, and it requires action to stop you from utilizing them.
I actually have a thing for
That's
positive
the
and
difference.
negative. Well, liberties, rights, freedoms, etc. So
Okay.
yeah, I have stuff for this, but
Okay.
I don't
I
think
mean,
you're
I
quite
don't
using
believe
them
positive rights are a
that
thing,
way. I don't think you're
but
quite using
whatever.
it the correct way, at least from how we generally understand like negative and positive liberties.
I mean, as you know, I don't care what other people think. If everyone is wrong, I'm not going to
Well, this is
also
like the
be wrong.
general like agreed upon thing, even from like libertarians and anarcho-capitalists and all this other stuff. Like these are like generally agreed
I don't
upon
like
principles by
libertarians. I don't like anarcho-capitalists. I don't like
like this is like generally agreed upon by
They're
like
wrong.
like philosophers, right? Like this is just something that like this is like our
Aristotle
understanding of
was
these.
right about a lot of things, but his ideas of like how biology works were wrong. Like
Sure, but like just because you can be right about one
someone
thing
can be
doesn't
right
mean
about
you're
one thing.
well, yeah, just because you're right about one thing
Yeah,
doesn't mean you're right about everything, sure. But like if there's like a general agreed upon like thing, which is what definitions are, this general agreed upon like what this word means, then this is what the word means. Like if it changes over time, then that's just what it does. But that's what definitions are, just general agreements.
Yeah, but also words
And
have
if
specific meanings.
and if philosophers and like and philosophers and stuff agree that this is what these mean, then this is what these mean. And if it changes in the future, it does.
Okay, sure, but not to move the goalpost, but I don't think many philosophers disagree with what I'm saying, except for negative rights philosophers. Obviously, positive rights philosophers will disagree with me.
So this is just what I have from my notes.
I
Negative liberties.
I think Aristotle would literally agree with me on what I said about negative rights.
So just in a short for negative and positive liberty. Negative liberties are let's see. This refers to the absence of obstacles, barriers, or constraints on an individual's actions.
Yeah, that's literally what I'm talking about.
But that's not quite. I don't think you're getting the general like what this means. It's in a sense just like
you're getting the general thing of what I mean.
Jesus. Okay.
Like, because you literally just you described what I'm trying to say, like almost verbatim.
Okay.
I don't know what else you want to say. Like that is literally what I'm saying, word for word, verbatim. Almost. Like not perfectly, obviously, but like it's close.
All right. Positive liberties. This concept focuses on the capability or ability of individuals to realize their potential and achieve their goals. Those are positive liberties and freedoms.
Yeah. I mean, you would say that in order to achieve your goals, you need other people to exist, which I don't disagree to a certain extent, but I'm just saying like the actual mechanics.
When it comes to like at least my philosophy, like I do believe in both negative and positive liberties. However, the way that I define them is going to be different from how you define them, because I do believe people should, in a sense, have as long as it doesn't infringe on other people, they have a right within a society to act upon certain like principles and stuff. However, they should also have the positive liberty and freedom in which like the coercion and like the ability to achieve their goal via like through I would use this like through social programs, right? Like I'd use social programs to help people like better like achieve their goals, which to help reduce poverty and all that stuff.
I mean,
while they still have the positive liberty to do what they want as long as it doesn't infringe on other people.
So the biggest disagreement between positive and negative rights people is that negative rights people basically say, well, you're describing rights as a privilege, and you do say to your credit that rights are a form of privilege, and that is the key like disagreement and distinction between the two philosophies. And gonna be real with you, there's gonna be like no squaring this unless we can agree on one or the other, which
yeah,
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to agree that rights are a privilege. So
yeah, and I don't think I necessarily disagree with either of these. It's just the way that I see them is different from how you see them. Because like I said, I don't disagree with negative liberty and positive liberty. It's just the way that I see them is the right negative liberty. I mean, like the people like they have the ability to do something. As long as you're not infringing on other people, like you don't have the right to murder or to steal from someone else, because you're infringing on their rights as well, on their liberties. While the positive liberty is like, hey, I also agree with social programs in the sense that this better like gives them the chance to realize their potential and achieve their goals.
I mean, okay, so there's negative rights, and then what you describe is the basis of social contract theory, like the whole I shouldn't infringe on other people's liberties, even if I'm engaging in my own liberty. That is like Hobbesian 101, like how people leave the state of nature. and form the social contract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I understand.
We live in the state of.
Well, I
Okay, so we live
understand,
in the
I
state
just-
of nature. Like,
yeah,
no, go
I
ahead.
hear you. I was saying I understand what you're saying. I just still disagree that that positive, well, like negative liberties and rights and stuff are in a sense universal, and like everything you can do and want to do is a right. I still disagree with that.
Well,
I still think like
well, they would have to be, or they wouldn't function the way that they do. Like, it wouldn't make sense that you live in the state of nature, but you couldn't murder someone.
Well, I
even
don't
though
necessarily.
you had
Well,
the
this thing I don't.
doing it. That makes
I don't.
no sense.
Well, the thing is, I don't really agree with the state of nature stuff, right? That's still one of my things I still disagree
Okay,
with.
so what do you mean by that? What do you mean you don't agree with the state of nature stuff?
Like you have absolute rights, like you were saying before, like if you're out in the woods by yourself, you have like absolute like liberty, absolute rights, etc. Like everything you can and want to do is a right to do so. The state of nature. I disagree that with that principle still.
I mean, okay, then you agree with Ben Shapiro that like your, I guess, value as a human being is determined by other people.
Well, valuation is like there's no objective valuation for anything. It's all subjective. Like the way I value myself is going to be different from the way you value yourself or how you would value me. Valuation doesn't come from other people. It's rather in like individual based off of like how we personally perceive different things.
Okay, because rights don't care about valuation, which is what you're saying. Like, rights don't care. The fact that you're killing someone, it doesn't matter. The right to do it doesn't care who they are or the circumstances of it. It's just the right to do it just comes from the fact that you can just do it, and it doesn't matter the circumstances. The valuation on whether you ought to kill someone is a different discussion and comes after. And
Well, that's the thing. I still don't.
It comes into being. Hold on. It comes into being because of social contract theory. Because if we didn't have the social contract, we would just live in the state. We do live in the state of nature, but it would just be the state of nature without any disagreements on what it is. Because you're right, we do disagree on what the state of nature is. But yeah.
So when it comes to state nature, I would say you maybe have absolute freedom in some case, but maybe not absolute rights. So like you technically have the freedom to do whatever you want whenever you want because you don't have any societal constraints, but that I wouldn't say you have the right to do those things. Those rights tend to come from a societal consensus.
So if rights are privileges, why in the state of nature would you not have unlimited privileges then?
Well, you can see it that way, but based off of your own internal valuation of that thing. Because if without some sort of societal consensus,
practically speaking, you would. Like,
but that wouldn't. But
physically,
I would still disagree with the whole natural rights stuff. Like, if you want to have your own internal valuation, that you can do these things, and as long it's that where it gets to the whole might equals right stuff I was talking about earlier, where if you have the might to do it without any societal constraints or anything, then in a way, yes, you can do it, but you don't necessarily have a right to do it, even though you have a freedom to do it. When it comes to societies, we tend to lose some freedoms.
Now all you're saying is that whether or not we're in the state of nature is based on whether or not other people agree that we're in the state of nature, which is funny because that's like the opposite of what the state of nature is.
I'm not even saying
you have to agree to be outside the state of nature.
No, I'm not. No, I don't think you're fully understanding. So, let's say tomorrow, like society just stopped existing. Like it was me and you just alone by ourselves, right? We don't have an agreement upon anything. We are, let's say, we don't even know each other exists, right? Or let's say it's just me. I would have the freedom to do anything I could ever want, whenever I want, no constraints whatsoever, other than the ones I place upon myself. That doesn't necessarily give me the right to do those things, just because I can do those things. Just because I have the freedom to do something doesn't mean I have the right to do that thing as well, right? When we start seeing societies, we tend to lose some freedoms for that security and for like the general like good things that societies provide us, And that's where rights tend to come from as
We
well,
don't-
as that general
We
agreement.
don't lose them. We don't lose them. We freely give them up with the understanding that to live among other people, we have to give these rights up.
Well, I would say in a
And
sense,
by
you
giving them up,
in
not
a way that
engaging them.
in a way that is losing those freedoms. In a way that is losing those. But
I mean,
those rights, but the rights and
it's
stuff
only
come from
losing.
that. Go ahead.
It's only losing if you want to engage in it, but then you shouldn't.
Well,
again,
Yeah. Realistically,
the
like,
very basis of social contract theory is you won't do unto others as they do unto you, and vice versa.
sure, but realistically, you do lose these things. Like, I don't have the freedom to murder you because there's a society that would stop me otherwise. I don't have that freedom. There's consequences to that action, like direct consequences.
Maybe. Maybe.
Versus like a true freedom, in which case there are no like actual consequences. You do something because you feel like you want to do it, and there's no external stimuli stopping you otherwise.
Well, I disagree. Like, just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean you don't have consequences to it. Like,
See, I think
you can own a gun.
I think
but
what's
use
going
that
on
gun to hurt other people. Go ahead.
So I think what's going on is that the way I'm using like freedom is the way that you're using rights. I think that's where like distinction is.
Okay. Well,
You think that might be it?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I just think that like I don't know how to describe it. You just like you have this weird idea that like you have like this almost anti-social contract view where it's like the state of nature only exists if we agree it does, and society inherently exists when it's like literally the opposite.
Well, I never said that the state of nature is determined upon like a societal consensus, or a societal evaluation. Like there's like you can have your own internal evaluation of these things without it being societal. So like you have your own internal evaluation for like your moral principles and stuff, and like what you would and wouldn't do if you were like in nature, like naked and all, like naked and afraid style, right? Like there's certain things you would and wouldn't do, even though you have the freedom to do anything and anything you could ever want. That doesn't mean that you would do those things as well.
Just because you're constrained by reality doesn't mean that absolute freedom can't exist in theory. It just means you live in reality.
Well, also absolute freedom would also require some sort of free will, and if everything's deterministic, then do you even have the freedom to do whatever you want?
Well, I mean that's also another thing. You don't believe that we have free will to make a choice. So.
Well, yeah. Like it's like faux choice, right? It's almost like we're watching a movie that's playing out, and we just don't know what's going on. Like we don't know what the future holds for us.
I mean, I disagree. I do think we can make a decision.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Why do you want to wrap up?
Well, we have been doing a little bit over 2 hours, but like, is there anything else like you want to talk about in regards to like current happenings, like philosophy, Trump, Biden, Harris, anything like that?
We do need to talk about how Joe Biden is demented, but you said you want to research that. I'm guessing you're gonna look up actual medical stuff, and you're gonna say that Joe Biden.
I was gonna do some like medical stuff. I was gonna do it last week, but then the Trump assassination stuff happened after I'd already streamed and did all that stuff, and I was like, man, what a bad. Yeah, well, now it doesn't matter because he dropped out, but before it did kind of matter, but I was more focused on like the Trump stuff rather than Joe Biden's mental capabilities. Well, and now he's fully dropped out, so realistically now anything I say doesn't matter. Like I could fully convince you, like literally tonight or tomorrow, like hypothetically, of course, that Joe Biden is like not demented whatsoever.
Okay, so here is another question that I think is actually interesting. So Joe Biden is dropping out because he says he basically said like I don't think I'll be good for the next term, all this stuff. Do you think that because he said that he's having issues, he'll have issues in the future? Do you think that means he should continue being president? Like, do those issues not contribute to issues now?
So, I think a lot of the stuff that was going on was that people were pressuring him around, like in his circle, people were pressuring him to drop out anyways. A lot of the Democratic Party was saying, hey, drop out anyways. He said he wasn't going to, until he saw like polling that would suggest otherwise, like suggest that he actually had a worse chance of winning. In fact, not even winning at all. And with a general
Yeah,
like
I agree.
societal consensus that hey, you're not actually going to win. Then he said he's going to drop out, and then with COVID and everything, that could cause even more problems. Then
I mean,
yeah, like
okay.
I mean, yeah. So like, there's like, is it good that do I like that he dropped out? No. Does it make sense that he dropped out? Yes, it does.
I mean, this goes back to the literal first discussion, which is like, who runs the presidency? Is it him, or is it his cabinet and aides and stuff? And I personally think Joe Biden hasn't been cognitively sound for. I mean, I think since 2020 at the very least, and he was having issues even before that. Like even back in 2016 when Trump was running, people thought he was going to jump in. Some people
Sure.
said that, and then others said no, he's too old and he's having cognitive issues and things like that. So
Yeah,
I
they've been saying
think,
that for the last like 6+ years. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I don't think, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And
And the other. Oh, go ahead.
so my research is mostly going to be over like his speeches. Like I'll even have like timestamps for like YouTube videos and like for like different speeches that he's done, and be like, look, here's a long time where literally he's made no mistakes. Here's an entire speech where he did nothing wrong. And then I'll even have some where like, hey, here's a mistake he did. Here's probably what happened in terms of that mistake and this mistake and all that stuff. Um, and like here's like research and stuff over like older people, like how their brain diminishes naturally over time, not because of dementia but because of age, and like a bunch of other like medical stuff too. Like I'm gonna have all this stuff like planned and everything for when we do it, if we do it, because now it doesn't matter because
Should we
he
have
dropped out.
should we have a president who's 81 years old and is starting to mentally have cognition issues, even if it's not dementia necessarily?
I mean, like term limits, I would, well, not term limits, like age limits, maybe not. I wouldn't quite know about age limits. However, I do think we should try to elect younger people just in general, like something that's actually more like like that shows like a proper demographic of like the age range of the US. And it tends to be, I'm gonna say pretty confidently, it's a lot younger than 81. Um, like someone that's maybe in like their 40s, 50s should probably be like more likely to be in power and in charge than someone that's like 70, 80, 90.
You know what's crazy? I was looking at it last week before the assassination, but Trump, George Bush, and Bill Clinton were all born in the same year.
Yeah. And then there's also like MLK Jr. and Anne Frank were born in the same year as well, and they're both were born later than the Queen Elizabeth. So like, it's all wild. Like another like wild like historical thing is that the first university um was actually built before the first pyramids.
Yeah.
Which is like it's just funny wild historical things. But yeah, I love
Yeah,
history.
but I mean, I was just saying that like Bill Clinton, like he's fucking old today, and he's having issues, and he's
yeah, and you can see as well like Trump's having issues as well. Like it's not just Biden. Like Trump's
definitely.
Yeah, Trump's made a lot of like really bad gaffes as well, and a lot of other shit. So
listen. Do I think Trump should be president? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just
oh,
saying
yeah,
that
I
Biden is
know.
also old.
Yeah, they're old. Yeah, I'm saying they are both old. Yeah, should we have someone that's probably younger? Probably. Yeah, I would probably say so. Sure. Like I'm not against Harris being like the president. I'm not against it at all. She was under the same administration as Biden. Like there's a lot of like stuff that they worked on together that I don't disagree with. She'll probably still be in contact with Biden for a lot of things for in terms of policy and stuff. Because
1 second, I'm. Fucker.
You good?
Hello? Can you hear me again?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, these are cheap, shitty Chinese headphones. So
you're good, man.
anyways.
But yeah, so like I'm saying that like I'm not against Harris. I'm not against like she worked a lot with Biden. She knows roughly like the policies and stuff that he did. Like I would definitely vote her over Trump, like guaranteed. Like, do I like Harris? Like, absolutely no. I actually much rather prefer Biden. a lot more.
I'm
We
gonna.
Go ahead, Delta. Hello. Did you fucking break? Hello? God, I love Discord. Well, this might have to wrap it up for today, because he can't. I don't know what's going on with him. Hello?
I
There you are.
I was a boomer and I hit airplane mode on my freaking phone.
Fucking
I don't know why. I'm gonna
dumbass.
move
Jesus.
airplane mode.
Yeah, you should just get rid of it altogether.
So,
anyways,
but
what were you saying?
no. Did you see that Trump brought? Did you see that Trump brought Hulk Hogan out for Hulkamania or for Trumpamania or whatever?
No, I didn't see that. No.
Oh my God! Just look up Hulk Hogan at the RNC. That was freaking hilarious.
I heard that the RNC stuff was like a snooze fest. Like it was just kind of like really nothing.
Ben Shapiro was like, "Oh my God, it was the best thing ever." And
Meanwhile, people
he was
literally
like,
sleeping.
"Conservatives are united."
Meanwhile, people were literally sleeping in the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was pretty dumb.
And then Trump, every other sentence lied. I'm pretty sure, like pretty close to it. But that's par for the course for him.
You know how any politician is lying. You know how to tell.
You just know because everything they say is a lie.
Their lips are moving.
But no, like in terms of like policy and stuff, like I definitely support Biden a lot more. Harris is like I probably support Harris a little less, but like they're roughly the same, and they're definitely a lot closer to me than Trump ever will be. So yeah, I'll support Harris in this election. I'll vote for Miss Kamala.
Okay.
I would just prefer Biden. Yeah.
Damn. Do you think like, Biden is like the best president we've had ever?
Not ever, no. But like I said with our tier list when I was trying to be like a little serious with it, like I do believe like in terms of like presidents and stuff, he's definitely like he's gonna be underrated in history, I would say, for a lot of the stuff he accomplished. I would say he's maybe like a B, like a B tier president, I would say.
Yeah.
And I would still say in terms of modern presidents, he is by far the best one we've ever had. Just period.
What the fuck?
You good?
What the fuck is going on with my phone?
You might need to get a new one.
Shitty shits. I don't know. One sec. I'm just gonna put you to my ear now.
Okay. But yeah, no, like I would say Biden is the best modern president we've had. Which it's still a low bar, but like I think it's an accomplishment. Huh? Yeah, yeah, of course he did better than Obama. Yeah.
Even better?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. In terms of like in terms of what he did
I've been seeing a lot of people say that.
Oh, what I just said?
No, yeah, like it's crazy because like Obama was like when he left office, people were like he is literally the best president ever and all sorts of stuff like that.
Well, yeah, but like I think it's like we're looking more back at it like retrospectively because at the time we didn't know like everything that what was going to happen.
No. When he was I used to be a really big listener into NPR, and he like NPR had like this whole special that was like it went over like every week, like it went over every week of the presidency and what was going on and things like that, and they talked about him so glowingly. It was crazy. They were like, when Obama left office, it was literally like Jesus ascending to heaven almost.
Well, Obama was also like an extremely popular president. Like if I would say if it was like Obama versus Trump, Obama would clearly
he was
win.
not. He was not a popular president. Maybe with people on the left, but not. He was not a popular president.
I'm pretty sure he was like fairly popular just in general with like most people at least. Like maybe not like hardcore Republicans, but like for most people.
He left when Obama left office. He was barely above Trump when Trump was his most popular, and Trump was very unpopular.
You think so?
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention during the Obama presidency and stuff, but I would say in terms of like what got done in like 4 years for Biden was a lot more than what Biden or for what Obama did in his 4 years, and the stuff that Biden has done in term like in his 4 years is like a lot compared to what Obama did in his 8 years. And also he didn't
Okay.
bomb people in Syria, so
I mean, I don't know. We don't have. I mean, we don't have outside the country, so I guess you're right. He did kind of fuck up Afghanistan, and yeah, that was
wouldn't even
Trump's
say that's
plan,
fully-
but he executed
even
it.
say it
It's
was
like Kennedy with the freaking Bay of Pigs.
yeah, I wouldn't say it was fully
So-
like Biden's fault for the Afghanistan thing. Like a lot of it was Trump, like in terms of like plans and stuff. He was just mostly
The-
following through with it. It is somewhat his
the
fault.
buck stops
Sure,
with him, though.
I'm sure. I'm
No,
saying,
it is his fault. The buck stops
saying-
with him when
yeah,
it
I'm
comes
saying-
to military stuff.
I'm saying it's somewhat his fault. Yes, I agree with that. However, I also don't think it was a full catastrophe. Like the fact that we got out with like very minimal deaths, and it was only like I think 1 or 2 attacks.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. It was almost as bad. Like, it's funny because Afghanistan ended the same way that like the Vietnam War ended, which is like a bunch of like U.S. Marines got killed. It's really interesting, like the parallels.
Let's see.
You should research I think it's the Mayunez or Maygunez incident where it was these Cambodians took over a U.S. ship, and America sent in the Marines, and it was basically the same thing where the Marines got like a bunch of Marines got killed, a couple were abandoned, no Marines were abandoned, but a bunch of Marines were killed, and it was just a shitty situation.
So I'm just looking at the approval for Obama. He was at 59% approval by the end of his presidency, it looks like, and then 37% disapproved, and then 4% had for Obama. 59% said they approved of Obama by the end of his presidency,
Yeah.
which is I would say
Yeah.
that's fairly popular. It's not the most popular, clearly. Like there's upwards of like 60-70% in some
Okay,
of these.
then
but
we're nitpicking on what popularity means, because to me popularity is like it's not just like 50 plus 1%. It's like I would say popularity is like more than 80%.
well, like, if we're
Which
looking
most
at like
presidents
well,
aren't popular.
The thing is, if we're looking at like more
by that
modern
definition.
presidents, Clinton is by far the best one, but Obama's like right
Yeah,
there next to him.
I agree
For
with that.
modern presidents, like he's second in modern presidents,
Okay.
which I would say
Maybe.
that's popular.
I don't know.
would say that overall that's popular.
I guess, and you're looking at the end of his presidency as opposed to like when he was kind of lame duck, so he wasn't doing much then, whereas like in the middle he was pretty unpopular and things like that.
Maybe. Let's see. Here's another thing for
Popularity changes over time. Approval, and
Yeah.
approval's a fickle thing. Like, so
So at first he was like in the 60s, 70s when he first got in office. Then it like tanked under 50, went a little bit above in the middle of the presidency. Then it tanked again, and then it went up to that 59% or whatever I put.
yeah,
said.
yeah. I don't know. I personally don't give a fuck about popularity. I think I don't
Well,
think
yeah.
presidential popularity means anything. So
It doesn't. It's not. It's a
Because-
good way to
because
maybe
of
determine
how
like who
fickle
might be
people are.
elected. Well, yeah, it may be a good determiner for like who might get elected, but it's not like an absolute determiner.
Oh, I
like
don't- well, I don't care. I don't care about that. So
well, you might care about who actually gets elected though, right? And popularity is like usually a good.
no president.
sometimes a good
I hate.
indicator.
I hate Trump. I hate Trump. I hate Biden. I hate them all.
But yeah, you hate all politicians except for one president.
Yes. Yeah, Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah. At least it's not Wilson.
Man was.
At least it's not
Yeah,
Woodrow.
Wilson was fucking terrible. I mean, the funny thing is like, Joe Biden is kind of acting like how Wilson was acting.
You think so?
Yeah. There were people saying there were aides saying that Jill was kind of running the country for a little bit because she wasn't making the decisions, but it was like Joe was kind of he would be so gone, especially later in the day, that like Jill Biden would basically tell him what to do almost because he was so faded.
Well,
Now
One of the-
that's unconfirmed. I mean, we don't know,
Sure.
but considering what we saw, I would not be shocked if that was the case.
I think I'd be a little bit more shocked. Maybe I have a little bit more faith in Biden as well. And like, I think a lot of the stuff that's been going on with these theories and stuff about Jill Biden possibly running the country by herself is that people think that he's a demented old man that like can't even like stand or walk or talk or anything, when there's been several times where he's done all these things just fine. And I think it's a lot of stuff is just like over sensationalized and overblown.
I don't know. You can have good days with dementia where you're fully cognizant and
yeah, but
all
like
that,
but like it's not just one. But
not.
it's not one day. It's most of the time he's like fully like he can speak and talk and do anything he wants. And then there's like one bad part in like a speech or two bad parts in a single speech that's like 30 minutes to an hour that people like
I don't know.
take.
There's these YouTubers I watch called Stitch and Adam, and they'll watch like the president gives speeches and stuff, and the whole time you should watch Stitch and Adam because they actually agree with you that Biden wasn't a bad president and he was actually good, but they were like, oh my god, like I would watch him give a speech and they're just like, this guy is like off his rockers. So like it's not just me saying this, like I've seen a lot of the speeches,
a lot of people
he does struggle.
I wouldn't say he's necessarily like fully struggling. Like he's like I said, he's done a lot of speeches, especially more recently. He did a lot of speeches, and they're like every once in a while he might have like a minor fuck up, but like for the most part he was like
it wasn't every once in a while. It was like every line almost.
No,
like
no.
There was the one he gave. There was the one he gave before the assassination, where he was like, it was bad.
I wouldn't say it was that bad, no. I've been paying more closer attention to like his speeches and stuff, and I've seen for the most part he's been doing good. Like some of it could just be an age-related thing. A lot of it is possibly even just overblown and stuff, like him getting a name wrong.
Well, then
I've got like we all get names wrong every once in a while.
What it has to be. Then what this has to be is I am looking for the bad things and you're looking for the good things, and we are never going to agree because our Overton windows are never going to align.
That could be the case because I do support like a lot of stuff that Biden said, so I am biased to be in favor of him, and you don't really like him,
and I don't.
Yeah. So like
I guess that's where we're at.
Maybe so, but like just from what I've seen from like all of his speeches and stuff throughout the 4 years he was president, I've seen good things. For the most part, I've seen like really good speeches, very strong, commanding speeches, even with just some minor hiccups and like fuck ups that got over sensationalized in the media because they need the views and stuff after Trump left office, and their fucking shit tanked afterwards.
Yeah, well, and then I would say he was bad because he was doing stuff. So.
Because he was doing stuff, yeah. All right. Is this where you want to end it at almost 2.5 hours?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm getting warmed up to go for a run, so I'm gonna go for a run. Gonna chase women in the park. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Make sure you bring your bear spray
Shirtless.
so you can
I'm
spray
gonna
all them little dogs.
Oh, dude, we need to talk about the bear question. We need to talk about the bear question because it gets even worse.
Oh, how so? Do you want to do it later or right now?
Well, we don't need to talk about. Yeah, I'm saying let's talk about it sometime.
Okay, yeah, maybe next week. This might have to be like a once a week thing because my life is kind of like random at the moment. There's no stability right now, so.
Damn.
Yeah, well, it's not stable as in like the amount like when I work and what days I work and like the time and everything is like all over the place. There is no consistent. I have X day off. I had like this week I had 4 days off and I'm working the next 4 days. And usually I have like maybe 2 or 3 days off, like back to back, and then, or like spread out throughout the week. So like the days I work are all inconsistent.
Yeah.
So we might have. I'll try to find a good time.
Yeah.
Anyways, love you, man.
We need to talk about the Bears.
Yeah. All right. Maybe later. Yeah. Love you, man.
All right. See ya.
Peace.